Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen cheats on her boyfriend and really ends up regretting it. Am I the jerk for selling my Taylor Swift tickets after my girlfriend cheated? A few months ago, I, 27 male, hit a stroke of luck and I won some money. Not life-changing amounts, but enough to splurge a little. My girlfriend, who's 25, is a massive Taylor Swift fan, like die-hard Swiftie since Fearless came out. So, being the thoughtful boyfriend that I was, I decided to surprise her with tickets to the Vancouver show. And not just nosebleeds either. I paid $800 for 2 really good seats. I was so excited to see her reaction because, let's be real, Taylor Swift tickets are basically gold at this point. Fast forward to last week when my life turned into an unexpected episode of Cheaters. My girlfriend had been using my laptop to print something, and when she was done, she left her Instagram DMs open. I wasn't snooping, but when I sat down to use it, I couldn't help but notice a chat right there at the top with her work friend. And let me tell you, the preview alone was concerning. I clicked. Call it morbid curiosity or whatever, but I needed to know. And what did I find? Weeks, no, months of flirty messages, inside jokes, and plans to meet up. As I scrolled, my stomach dropped further. They had kissed several times, and while it hadn't crossed the line into a full-blown physical affair that I know of, it was definitely emotional cheating. When I confronted her, she tried to gaslight me at first. "Oh, it's nothing. He's just a friend." But when I laid out the receipts, literally her own words, she finally came clean. She admitted it was an emotional affair and that they'd kissed on a few occasions. A few occasions? Like that somehow makes it better. I was wrecked. Here I was, thinking about how amazing it would be to share this once-in-a-lifetime Taylor Swift experience together, and the whole time she'd been sneaking around with Kyle from accounting or whoever. I knew there was no way I could take her to that concert after this. Just the thought made me sick. The tickets were still sitting in my Ticketmaster account, so I decided to sell them. If you've been following the tickets market, you know Taylor Swift tickets are hotter than Tesla stock. I ended up selling them for $2,400, triple what I paid. Honestly, I was a little shocked at how fast they sold. Here's where things get messy. My now ex-girlfriend found out that I sold them and lost her mind. She called me petty, cruel, and accused me of ruining her dream. She even pulled the "but they were a gift, so they're mine" card. Sorry, but last time I checked, cheating kind of voids the gift receipt. But it didn't stop there. Her friends started blowing up my phone too, calling me names for using the tickets to punish her and saying I should have just given them to her if I didn't want to go. Excuse me? I spent my money on those tickets, and after what she did, I'm supposed to just hand them over? Yeah, no. For the record, I wasn't trying to be vindictive. I just couldn't stomach the idea of her enjoying something I worked hard to buy, while I sat there feeling like a chump. Plus, let's be real, $2,400 is a nice consolation prize for having my heart stomped on. Now, I'm sitting here wondering if I went too far. Did selling the tickets make me petty? Should I have just let her go? Or was I justified in taking back something that I paid for? Am I the jerk for selling the tickets? Edit. A lot of people are asking why I didn't just break up with her and give her the tickets to keep the peace. To clarify, I did break up with her right after confronting her about the cheating. The tickets were still in my name, and since I bought them with my money, I figured I had the right to decide what to do with them. Also, I'm not some cold-hearted robot. I bought these tickets because I loved her and wanted to make her happy. Finding out she had been sneaking around behind my back completely shattered me. Selling the tickets wasn't about revenge, it was about not wanting to feel like an idiot handing her the keys to something so special after what she did. Not the jerk. It wasn't an emotional affair if they were kissing, it was an actual affair. If you still took her to the concert after she had an affair with someone else, that would be weird. You should move on and let her have her new relationship out in the open and let that person buy her Swift tickets. Who gives a crap what a cheater and her gross friends think about you? Block them and move on. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. She messed around and found out. And you can't be surprised that her airhead friends took her side. I would bet that they knew all about her cheating all along. Today I messed up by going camping in the woods alone, and I'm still scared as I write this. Here's a story about how I decided to go camping solo, hoping for a relaxing weekend in nature to clear my head. Seemed like a peaceful idea, just me, my tent, and the great outdoors. It was anything but peaceful. In fact, it was a disaster of epic proportions. I found a spot in the woods after what felt like 100 wrong turns down sketchy trails. Finally, I pitched my tent, struggling for way too long with those cursed tent poles, and eventually got a fire going. Proud of myself, I cracked open a beer and sat down in my little folding chair, watching the fire dance. By the time the sun was setting, I was feeling pretty smug about how survivor-like I was being. The real nightmare started when night fell. Holy cow, I was not prepared for how dark it gets in the woods. I thought, okay, I'll just let my eyes adjust. But nope, no amount of squinting was helping me see more than a few feet in front of my face. Every single sound, the rustling leaves, the wind blowing through the trees, the distant hoot of an owl, sounded like it was coming straight for me. I kept telling myself, it's just nature, you're fine. But I was holding my flashlight like a sword, half expecting something to jump out of the shadows. Around midnight, things took a turn for the creepy. I started hearing rustling noises that were way too close for comfort. It wasn't just the wind or the usual animal sounds, this was something moving. My heart was racing, but I convinced myself, it's probably just a raccoon or something harmless. Yeah, I was holding my breath and staying as still as humanly possible. But whatever it was, the sound kept getting closer and closer. And then, I swear to whatever cosmic forces exist, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling my tent. At this point, I was losing it. I had my pocket knife in one hand, shaking like a leaf, and probably useless in a real-life horror scenario. My flashlight was still on, and I tried to turn it off, but I was too scared to even reach for the button. My mind was racing. What's going on here? A raccoon? A bear? Some wild creature out of a horror movie? The footsteps stopped. There was a deafening silence for a few minutes, and I was about to convince myself I had imagined the whole thing when something tapped on the side of my tent. I froze. I couldn't even breathe. My heart was hammering in my chest like it was trying to escape. I wanted to scream, but no sound would come out. I was utterly paralyzed, convinced that whatever or whoever that was had me dead to rights. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps faded into the distance. I finally managed to peek outside, but I couldn't see anything. I didn't feel safe staying there, so I packed up as fast as humanly possible. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the tent down, but I didn't care. I was booking it back to my car, convinced something was following me the whole time. That walk back to my car? One of the longest of my life. I was absolutely convinced that something was going to pounce out of the shadows at any second. I drove home in the middle of the night, heart pounding, shaking like a leaf the entire way. I still don't know what or who was out there, but one thing's for sure. I'm never camping solo again. Ever. Oh man, I've been there. I once woke up around 3 a.m., my dog standing in the corner of the tent terrified, fur standing up, tail between her legs, something walking around just outside. Then it started sniffing the tent. Poked my head out when it started moving away. It was a deer. Had so many weird encounters with deer. They're curious creatures. Same here. I'm a country boy, and I've taken my city friends and family camping. People don't realize just how noisy the woods are at night. I can say pretty confidently that you had a deer or a raccoon poking around your tent. They're super curious animals, especially those darn raccoons. I was solo camping years ago in my 20s, fell asleep in my hammock. I had been snacking before bed while reading. Woke up to a huge raccoon sitting on my chest eating the leftover Pop-Tart I was too tired to put away. Those little guys will do anything for an easy meal. I have plenty of experiences camping, and you're absolutely right about the paranoia that sets in once it gets dark. The fire is out and you're in your tent. Your description of the footsteps and the tapping on your tent reminds me of when I set up next to a spot where deer would sleep at night. When deer walk slowly, their footsteps sound close to human, and they will poke at tents with their foot or their snout just out of curiosity. If nothing startles them, deer will pace about slowly and deliberately before bedding down for the night. Am I the jerk for only paying for one of my daughter's weddings and down payment? So I'm 50 male, have 3 kids, Sarah who's 35, Jessica who's 25, and Ben who's 23. My wife and I had Sarah when we were both 16. It wasn't easy, but with the support of our parents, we managed to finish college while raising her. When it came time for Sarah to go to college, we didn't have the funds to assist her, so she took out loans and paid for them herself. We learned from our mistakes and started saving for her siblings, Jessica and Ben, who received around $100,000 in college funds with no debt. Sarah never complained. She completed her education, landed a fantastic job, and paid off her loans within 3 years while staying with us to save as much as possible. She also helped with her younger siblings, babysitting and assisting however she could, maybe even to a fault. When Sarah told me 5 years ago that she was getting married, I talked to my wife and expressed how guilty I felt that we hadn't been able to do anything for her. I wanted to give her the inheritance I received from my grandmother, around $50,000, to help with her wedding and a down payment on a house. Thankfully, my wife agreed, and although she didn't need it, I knew it meant a lot to Sarah. The issue arose when Jessica assumed we'd offer a similar gift for her wedding. She was surprised when I told her we never discussed such a plan, and even if we wanted to, we didn't have the budget for it. Jessica argued that it wasn't fair we helped Sarah but weren't doing the same for her. I explained that in the long run, we had spent twice as much on her and Ben compared to what we had ever spent on Sarah. She countered by saying that Sarah didn't need the help because she and her husband had paid off their house and were doing well financially. I told her it wasn't about Sarah's financial situation. This was about us finally being able to do something for our oldest child, who had sacrificed so much because we had her at a young age. Jessica did not take it well, stormed off, and hasn't spoken to us since. My wife thinks we should offer a small loan to Jessica to make things right. She's afraid of losing contact with our daughter and being left out of the wedding. But I've drawn a hard line, as I believe Jessica isn't entitled to our money. Even Sarah is saying the situation is getting out of hand and offered to help pay half the money. Personally, I've reached a point where I'd rather burn the $50,000 than give it to her. Sarah and my wife think it's not worth destroying our family over, but I stand firm. Giving in would only make her more entitled in the future. Why OP gave the eldest daughter money. I gave her the money because I felt like a bad father. I thought about all the time we missed from her childhood and the less expensive presents she received compared to her siblings because we didn't have the money. She never complained or said how unfair it was. I didn't give her the money as a reward. I gave it to her as an apology for us being stupid kids and not being able to provide the childhood that she deserved. Update. After reading the comments, I felt even more convinced that I was in the right, so I sat down with my wife to talk. Following many of your suggestions, I showed her this post and asked her to read it. She wasn't happy, especially when she saw how many people had read it, but she was curious. This has been on her mind a lot lately, and she wanted to know what everyone thought. She had a few issues with my comments. She believes that when I said I would rather burn the money, it indicates I need to change my approach to problem solving. While it might be easy for people on the internet to suggest that parents cut off contact with their kid, she isn't ready to lose her daughter. Additionally, she thinks my statement about doing my duty and wanting to take care of myself comes across as selfish and isn't something a parent should say. She believes there's a reasonable compromise. Instead of giving Jessica the full $50,000, we could offer her half for the wedding. This way, we can cover most of the expenses from our savings, borrow the rest from Sarah if needed, and pay her back within a year. I told her right away that I was not going to do that. I told her that we could separate our finances and that she could return to work full-time to help Jessica pay for the wedding. However, I made it clear that I was done. As selfish as it may seem, I don't feel obligated to Jessica anymore, and I want to enjoy my life while I still can. She replied, as she always does, that I'm stubborn and would take that step if it meant keeping the family together. I told her it was fine, but not to come to me complaining about her health when she went back to work full-time. A couple of days ago, she came to me and said she agreed with my proposal. We made a plan to open a joint bank account where we would deposit our monthly expenses. After that, we can each use our personal money however we like. We agreed on an amount to keep in our savings account for emergencies and decided to split the remaining funds 50-50. I even agreed to cover 60% of the money needed for our joint expenses. This is the first time we will have more than one bank account, so I'm a bit nervous about how it turns out. I also believe she mentioned talking to her boss about working more hours, but I want to avoid getting involved in that discussion. I spoke with Sarah and expressed my concerns about giving Jessica any money, which I believe is a bad idea. However, Sarah insists she wants to help. She mentioned that while she agrees with my viewpoint, she doesn't want their mom to return to work full-time. She clarified that her decision to help was aimed at supporting their mom, not Jessica. I told her that it was her money and she could do as she pleased, but like her mom, I wouldn't involve myself in the situation any further. Right before I wrote this post, I sent an email to Jessica expressing my feelings for her. I clarified where I stood and mentioned that she could decide how involved I would be in her wedding. I don't expect a reply, but now I'll have to wait and see what happens. Talking about taking loans out to help pay $25,000 for half a wedding is absolutely insane. Paying $50,000 for a wedding when you can't afford it is ridiculous. She's 25, spending $50,000 on a wedding. If she invested $30,000 of it instead, she could still have an awesome wedding and retire years earlier. All that for one day. What a waste. She doesn't even have that money. She's putting her mom back to work for it and in debt. You're debt-free with a college education. Make some decent financial decisions now and work hard to get a job that pays well. And with any luck, she could retire in her 50s. Karen gets upset over first come, first serve at a coffee shop, ends up getting taken down by a cop. So this happened about a year ago during winter. It was one of those cold mornings where all you want is a hot cup of coffee and some peace. I had a haircut appointment at the barber next door, but I was early, so I figured I'd grab a coffee while I was waiting. The coffee shop was pretty busy, but not crazy packed, just your typical weekend crowd. There were 2 people ahead of me in line and a few more trickling in behind me. In front of me was a woman who looked like she had just walked off the set of Real Housewives, expensive coat, big flashy jewelry, and the signature "I'd like to speak to your manager" haircut. You know the type. When it was her turn, she gave an order that sounded more like a science experiment than a coffee. I couldn't even follow it all. Something like, "A half skim, half oat milk latte with 2 pumps of caramel, 1 pump of vanilla, a sprinkle of cinnamon, a dash of nutmeg, and make it extra hot, but not too hot." The poor barista politely explained it might take a few minutes, and she moved to the side to wait. When they asked her name for the cup, of course, it was Karen. Then it was my turn. I'm a simple guy with simple tastes. My coffee order? Large and black. That's it. Of course, the barista had to jazz it up, like, "So, a large Americano with no cream, no sugar, just black?" Yeah, dude, exactly. He turns around, fills up a cup from the nearest pot, hands it to me, and boom, I'm done in under 30 seconds. As I'm grabbing my coffee and heading toward the door, I catch Karen glaring at me like I just insulted her entire family lineage. She marches up to the counter with her signature Karen stomp and starts raising heck. "Excuse me, where is my latte? And why did that slob behind me get served first? Isn't this supposed to be first come, first serve?" The barista tries to explain in the calmest voice possible that my order was literally just pouring coffee into a cup, while hers was more complicated and would take a little longer. But Karen wasn't having it. Her voice kept getting louder and louder, and soon she was dropping all kinds of language and flailing her arms like she was auditioning for a reality TV meltdown. At this point, the manager comes out to try to defuse the situation, but Karen's already in full Karen mode. People in the cafe are starting to stare, and I'm just standing there sipping my coffee because this is better than Netflix. And then, plot twist, one of the guys who was in line behind me unzips his coat, and underneath is a police uniform. He wasn't in line for coffee anymore. He was making his way up to the counter, probably realizing things were about to hit the fan. The cop calmly tells Karen, "Ma'am, you're causing a disturbance. It's best if you calm down." But Karen? Nope. She just stands there, stunned for a second, like she can't believe this random cop isn't immediately siding with her. Then she doubles down, pointing her finger in his chest and yelling, "What is wrong with you? I'm the victim here. I paid good money and I didn't get my order. They should be the ones arrested." The cop tries to reason with her again, but Karen's now fully unhinged. She starts jabbing her finger into his chest, shouting, "You need to do your job and arrest them." And that's when it happened. The cop, who had been patient up until this point, grabs her arm and takes her down like something out of a drama. One second she's screaming, the next she's face first on the floor, still yelling, but now with a side of handcuffs. As he's cuffing her, he's calmly reading her Miranda rights. "You're under arrest for assaulting a police officer, disorderly conduct." Meanwhile, Karen's shrieking, "You can't do this. I'll sue you. I'm calling my lawyer." Another officer shows up, probably alerted by all the yelling, and helps escort Karen out of the shop. The whole cafe is dead silent for a moment, and then someone in the back lets out a little slow clap. Before I left, I asked one of the officers if they needed me to stick around or make a statement. They just shook his head and said, "Nah, we've got everything we need." So I walked out of there, finished my coffee, and went to my haircut like nothing had happened. Moral of this story, don't mess with baristas, don't assault cops, and for the love of caffeine, just wait patiently for your latte. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my special recipe with my cousin who wants to use it for her business? Okay, here's the deal. I'm 18 and I've got this dessert recipe that's kind of a big deal to me. I spent forever in the kitchen testing things out, like full-on food science mode. There were some absolute disasters. Rest in peace to that one batch that tasted like a mix of sadness and burnt sugar. But eventually, I nailed it. It's a unique twist on a classic dessert, and it's so good that my family legit hounds me to make it for every gathering. Seeing how much everyone loves it makes me feel awesome, and honestly, it's my little claim to fame in the family. Enter my cousin Jess. She's 24 and recently started her own baking business from home. It's going pretty well, and I'm genuinely happy for her. She's got a cute setup with Instagram pics of her creations, lots of pastel colors and captions like "just whisking it" or whatever. Anyway, last week during a family dinner, Jess pulled me aside and hit me with, "Hey, so I was thinking maybe you could give me that recipe of yours. I want to add it to my menu." At first, I was flattered. Like, wow, my recipe is so good that a pro baker wants to use it? But then I thought about it for a second and realized I wasn't comfortable with that. I told her no as politely as I could and explained that it's really personal to me. It's my thing, you know? Jess did not take it well. She said I was being selfish and asked why I was hoarding it when I wasn't even using it to make money. Like, just because I'm not starting a business doesn't mean I should hand it over on a silver platter. It didn't end there. Jess told her mom, my aunt, who decided to get involved. Auntie called me up and gave me the whole family should support each other speech, adding that I was being stingy and immature. I tried to explain my side, that this recipe is something I worked really hard on and I take pride in, but she wasn't hearing it. She even threw in a guilt trip about how I should be honoring family tradition or something. Tradition? I'm pretty sure making a killer dessert recipe doesn't count as a family legacy. Now my family is all over the place. Half of them think I'm being petty, while the other half are staying quiet, probably because they don't want to get caught in the crossfire. Jess took it a step further and posted some vague rant on Facebook about gatekeeping creativity and how you can't get ahead with unsupportive people holding you back. She didn't name me, but like everyone knows she's talking about me. The drama is so over the top, I almost have to laugh. Meanwhile, my mom is like, "Just give her the recipe, it's not worth all this drama." But I don't want to. It's not about the recipe itself, it's about what it represents for me. I worked hard on it, and it's mine. And yeah, maybe it's not the most rational hill to die on, but it feels important. Jess could literally make her own twist on the dessert, but she wants my version because it's already a hit. That doesn't sit right with me. So now I'm stuck in this weird limbo where I'm apparently the villain for not giving away something I created. Every family dinner is going to be super awkward from now on, but honestly, I don't regret standing my ground. At least not yet. But what do you guys think? Am I being a petty little gremlin here, or do I have a point? Not the jerk. If this were tech or music or a different industry, no one would expect you to give up your successful creation for someone else's profit. You developed this. This has gotten you success and praise and a sense of accomplishment within your family. If she takes this and makes it part of her business, will she start showing up with the treats and taking credit? It just sounds like she's fine with doing you over to get her small business off the ground. Karen ruins my professional cookware. The problem started when my girlfriend moved in about 2 years ago. I'm a former professional chef with a great passion for food. Over the years, I've gotten myself a lot of kitchen equipment that's quite expensive. If it breaks, I won't be able to replace it for at least a couple of months, that I take care of as if it's my little babies. I have knives, pots, and pans that I've kept in pristine condition despite using some of them a lot for 10 years or more. I also have a bunch of cheap, low-quality equipment in my kitchen that I call my crap pans. When she moved in, she asked me about them and why I don't just throw them away, and I jokingly told her that I keep them in case I have people with me that I don't trust in my kitchen. Sometime after she moved in with me, I started noticing scratches in my non-stick pans, dents in my knife edges, and deformations in my pots. I started observing my girlfriend when she was cooking and saw her cutting stuff with one of my Japanese chef knives directly on top of the stainless steel counter, and I told her right away to use a cutting board. I've seen that when she's done with a pan, she puts it under running water to cool it down. She uses dishwashing soap in my cast iron pans, and the list goes on. I've told her multiple times how to take care of the equipment and what not to do, and pretty much every time I correct her, she gets annoyed. So last week I came home, and to my horror, I saw my 5-liter cast iron pot filled up with water that had dishwasher soap in it. It's one of my favorite pots that I've seasoned over the course of 15 years. I snapped and told my girlfriend that she's not allowed to use my expensive equipment anymore, and showed her the crap pans, and I told her that those are the ones she's gonna have to use in the future. She thought I overreacted, but I refused to budge. I'm getting tired of resharpening knives every other day and having to throw out pans that I've inherited from generations back because they got deformed or rusted beyond restoration. She reminded me of how I said the crap pans were for people that I don't trust and questioned whether I trust her or not, which I do, just not with my kitchen equipment. So please enlighten me. Am I the jerk for banning my girlfriend from using my kitchen equipment? I'm gonna say not the jerk. I'm the same as you. I am a one-woman army in the kitchen, and I have some expensive knives and equipment that I've been gifted over the years. I learned how to take good care of them all. I do 99% of the cooking in my house, and my husband used to also accidentally mess up my stuff when he did. I told him to either do the right things to clean them or to just leave it if he forgets how to use it and I'll take care of it. You explained how to properly clean and care for your stuff and she isn't doing it. And on top of that, she's getting visibly annoyed when you remind her. She doesn't care about the stuff that you clearly do. Plus, it's not like you gave her no alternative. There are pots and pans and knives that she can still use. I think it's fine to have stuff that's just your own, for whatever reasons you want to have them. In this case, she's not respecting your stuff, so you get to have your own, and she has hers. Well, what do you think? Should OP let his girlfriend use his cookware or not? Please let us know. If Reddit boy scratched my Teflon, he'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for making my boyfriend do all of the chores? I, 30 female, run a small online business from home. November and December are my busiest times of the year when I make a lot of money that allows me to work less during the year. I've been doing this since I was 25, so I've got a decent idea of what I can and cannot do. And focusing on work only for 1 to 2 months is a sacrifice I'm willing to make for the chill rest of the year. This year, I've moved in with my boyfriend, male 35. Well, technically, he moved in with me because I own the house, so it was a no-brainer for him to move in with me. We split chores half and half. He works full-time, 37.5 hours a week. When he moved in, I had a talk with him, letting him know that I can't do any chores in November or December, and asked if he could pick up the slack because I'm physically unable to do any chores, as I can be working anywhere between 12 to 18 hours a day. I take a full January off to decompress. He said he doubted I worked that much, but we would see. I asked again in September and October to make sure that he was aware that I won't be doing anything. I meal prepped in advance, and I felt he kind of dismissed me. Mid-November, we had an argument about my chores not being done, and I reminded him of what I told him. He said that he thought I wasn't being serious and told me there's no way he'd do 100% of the chores because he's working too. I said fine, don't do my chores. They can wait until I have time. That's how I was when I lived alone, no problem. I don't make much mess anyway. He wasn't happy, but dropped it. We haven't seen each other much because I've been working so much, but he's been more and more upset and blew up at me today regarding the chores. He said I had to have a better work-life balance and to grow up because the house was a mess. I told him if it was a mess, it was his fault because I barely leave my office. He called me a lazy jerk. I told him I didn't have time for arguing and I went back to working. He stood in front of my locked office door shouting how he couldn't believe I was being serious about not doing chores and it was a jerk move to leave it all up to him. He thinks I'm a major jerk for basically disappearing for 2 months and following through with not doing chores. Am I really the jerk for saying I won't do chores and following through with it? Not the jerk. Someone who called me a lazy jerk in my house wouldn't be living in it much longer. He called you a lazy jerk? That kind of disrespect and rudeness in a relationship would not fly with me, and he'd be out. Not the jerk. Wow, your boyfriend is showing his true colors. Believe him. I know that right now you don't have time to rearrange your life, but once January comes around, you should give yourself the gift of losing the deadbeat boyfriend. For what it's worth, I'm married, and both me and my husband have gone through times where we had to pick up the slack for each other for whatever reason. And it's not always a work reason. There could be health issues, the birth of a child, travel, and a billion other things that come up. Your boyfriend is showing you that he will throw a fit and call you names whenever he needs to support you. This is bad, really bad. It should be a deal breaker. Everyone sucks here. You're a grown woman and can clean after yourself. Many people work crazy hours, and not just during 2 months of the year, but they keep their shared living spaces clean. Your boyfriend escalated it by calling you names, and he could have helped out more, especially knowing that you're stressed. I think you need to both sit down and have a conversation, or you may not be happy in a relationship in a month. The answers on here are funny. If the situation were switched and a man said this to his wife, everyone would be saying he is a jerk because she works too and chores should be shared. It should be the same in this other direction as well. She can take an hour or two and do chores. I work for an accounting firm and quite frequently work 14 to 16-hour days, not including commute, and I still keep up my end of the chores. Instead of sleeping in on Saturday or Sunday, I get up and catch up on chores. She can do the same. We get it. A woman hurt you. But no, she communicated perfectly, multiple times, set herself up for success. A 35-year-old freeloader who pays no bills and doesn't want to contribute at all is the jerk. I am a woman. As I said, he's not taking advantage of her. He's complying with their agreement. She can still do her part. She might not do it every day, but she can give up an hour or two of sleep on the weekends to get it done. It's not rocket science. You know full well if a man would have made this post, people would be all over him saying, "Oh, you expect her to do everything and clean up after you, blah blah blah." But when it is a woman posting that she is working a lot and can't do chores, then it's all good and fine. Talk about a double standard. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I love it when the minions on Reddit get into quarrels with one another. 6 dirty dishes made me quit this place. Perhaps relevant. I opened this location as the assistant manager, took a long maternity leave, then returned as a shift lead. The GM is the same one I was assistant to. In August, the morning cook quit, and we still haven't replaced him. I've been doing twice the work since then. The start of my shift is stressful because I set up the entire cook line alone. In 90 minutes, I do all this. Turn on all the equipment, turn on 6 of the 8 fryers, clean the filter machine, filter the other 2 fryers and turn them on, top of the fryers with fresh oil, stock up 2 stations with about 150 pounds of meat on each, set up ice bath and batter for both stations, make and hot hold our buffalo sauce, temp all the fryers, start 2 new time control logs, set up sanitation water and hot soapy water, and have all of the fried chicken ready before we open, so drop about 20 minutes before open. Yesterday morning, I was 5 minutes late due to the snow. There were multiple containers of chicken that were half full or less, so I had to spend time consolidating them. There was also not a drop of batter in the house, so I had to make a whole batch, which takes at least 5 minutes. Finally, all our livers were spoiled, so I had to take those out to the dumpster and take them off the POS. Basically, about 15 minutes of not setting up the line. As I'm scrambling to finish the batter I made, the KitchenAid, Marta, tells me I need to do my dishes. I had dropped off a couple chicken containers, the pan that had the spoiled livers, a bowl, and 2 whisks. She was training one of the line cooks in KitchenAid duties, so there was an extra person. This means she had less to do and was doing dishes immediately when they came to the dish pit. As I'm rushing to open the line alone, I saw her just stand around watching the trainee. I clarified 3 times that she was talking about me. I was so taken aback for multiple reasons. 1, she saw me hustling to do all this crap, and I was running behind. 2, I always contribute to the dishes. I even stay late sometimes to do all the dishes and clean the dish pit and put in fresh water before the evening KitchenAid comes. 3, I'm a shift lead, and she's supposedly my subordinate. I simply said, "I'm too busy right now," to which she said, "No, it doesn't matter." I told her I would do them later then, and walked away to continue setting up the line. It's 25 minutes before open at this point, and I'm only halfway set up. When I come back to get the second batter container, she stops me again. She tells me that, "Dishes are all our responsibility, and we have to collaborate as a team." Okay then, leave them aside and I'll do them later. She immediately says no. I have no problem doing the dishes. I actually genuinely enjoy it. It's soothing to take something dirty and make it clean. The water is warm and the soap smells nice. I just can't wash dishes and also set up the entire cook line while on a time crunch. The general manager, Bill, arrived a couple minutes after the altercation. Immediately discredited my thoughts and feelings on this. He kept repeating that it wasn't a big deal and that she didn't realize I was so busy. When I said that's not the point, her saying no and lecturing me about how to do my job is called insubordination. Bill actually rolled his eyes and said it's not that serious and to calm down. Marta did not need to apologize to me. She was passive-aggressive the rest of the shift. She put me in danger by not calling out basic kitchen safety things like "behind you with hot" or "oven opening behind you." She opened the oven door and it actually grazed my leg and she didn't say anything. Marta then argued with Bill about cutting the potatoes. He said she was cutting them too small. There was a back and forth, then later I checked and the potatoes were cut the way Marta likes them. She runs this store now apparently. I had to work the rest of the shift feeling like crap. Bill even told me I should apologize to Marta so things aren't awkward. I retorted that she should be written up for insubordination. Bill rolled his eyes again. At the end of my shift, I put in my resignation. I told him that he expects me to do all the manager duties, but I don't get the same respect. I let him know that he discredited everything I said and solidly defended Marta. I even let him know that I don't have a job lined up, but I just couldn't take the disrespect. I'm sad. I loved that job. I could see myself there another 10 or 20 years. But the way Bill handled that situation was the glass-shattering moment. I am not valued. I am not respected. I work so hard, and I have a supportive management style. I'm always helping wherever the work is needed. Being lectured on dishes is just straight up offensive to me, and Bill did nothing to support me. Edit. Talk to the office manager of a dental office I used to work for, and I start Monday. To those weirdos attacking me, weird that you assume my income supports my kid, and my womanly emotions have now caused us to be on the streets. My husband makes more than enough for me to not even work, and it's my choice to work. I quit with nothing lined up because I knew I'd have a new job in days, and that I don't even need a job at all. Why do you people spread hate and anger like that? This is just a vent that a lot of people here can relate to, nothing more. It's not that serious. Calm down. Am I the jerk for making a scene when my son refused to dance with me? This all started when my son, Ben, graduated high school. There was a formal dance. I was very excited for the mother-son dance. Every time I brought it up, Ben would say he wasn't going to dance. I didn't take him seriously. I thought he was just being shy. When we got to the formal, everything was beautiful. But when it came time for the formal dances, he was nowhere to be seen. I approached my older daughter, Alice, and my husband, who I could see were talking and laughing. I asked if they had seen Ben, and they laughed and said he was going to go hide so he didn't have to dance. I was absolutely heartbroken. My son was literally hiding from me. I stood in the corner during the mother-son dance, watching all his friends dance with their moms. I couldn't take it, so I told my husband and daughter that I was walking home. When they got home, Ben walked right past me and went to his room to get ready for the after party. My daughter hugged me and went to go get ready because she was driving Ben to the party. After our kids left, my husband and I had an argument about what had happened. He said he was appalled at my behavior and that I was acting like a kid. I said that the least Ben could have done was dance with his mother. He said that today was supposed to be about him and his accomplishment, not me. But in my opinion, today should have also been about celebrating the people who helped him get to where he is now. Things got quite heated, and before going inside, my husband said that he wasn't going to force his son to do something he didn't want to do on his day. I was taken aback by this, so I just stayed on the porch, trying not to cry. I thought my husband would support me. Later, my daughter returns home and sees me crying. She gives me a hug and gave me a chocolate bar to try to cheer me up. If no one else, my daughter would be on my side. She danced with me at her graduation. She danced with her father. She understood how important this day was for me. I asked if she was on my side. She said something along the lines of, "I know you're upset, but I don't know what you expected from him." It took a few days before we really spoke to each other again, and after a few weeks, everything went back to normal. Coming back to the present, my daughter recently got engaged. We were talking about it on a family FaceTime, and the topic of when Ben will get married came up. He said he was never going to get married because he doesn't want to deal with another round of dance drama. When I asked him to clarify, he said that he was obviously referring to his graduation. I was appalled at this attack. He won't get married because of me? I won't lie. I'm upset that he still does not want to dance with me, even at his own wedding. Now my husband is mad at me. My son refuses to answer my calls or texts. Am I the jerk for making a scene and starting an argument because my son never wants to dance with me? Edit. Okay, it appears as though the response is pretty unanimous and I have a lot of thinking to do. You're the jerk. When he said, "I don't want to dance," that should have been the end of the story. It sounds like you walk over his boundaries often, and that was one of the first times he's spoken up to you about it. You're going to be a very interesting mother-in-law. I don't understand why he couldn't have had just one dance with his mom for the son and mother dance, while all of his other classmates did. Was he too cool to dance with his mom? I'm pretty sure every teenager feels that way. But the others somehow managed to make it through one dance with their moms. Hopefully he will be really embarrassed for humiliating you this way. I'm not gonna lie, all these "you're the jerk" comments are a little harsh. I do agree with the son having the right to say no to the dance, but it is a little harsh. His mom was excited for this dance. I feel for her too. As someone with a husband that refuses to dance for anything, even weddings, I sympathize. I'm sorry that this experience hurt you, OP, I don't think you're the jerk, but nor is your son. It just sucks. No jerks here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy wanted to dance with me, he'd need a new...
I know. I'd need a new head.
I was just going to say you'd need a new pair of shoes. Those things have been falling apart for the last 3 years.
I do work here, now. My birthday is coming up soon, so I decided as a gift to myself, I would buy another guitar. You can never have too many guitars. I figure I'm going to be 55 in a few days, so why not? I went to the local music store I hunt for my strings, straps, picks, and the occasional repair since I'm an incompetent boop when it comes to the electronics. As I walked around trying to see if there was a Strat that caught my interest, I would take a guitar, plug it in, check the action, intonation, see if it worked for me, if I liked the sound. And yes, I played Stairway to Heaven. That forbidden riff is just crap from Wayne's World that people bought into. The employees at the store don't really care about what you play as long as you're not a jerk hammering away on the guitar with the amps cranked up when they just want to get through their workday like everyone else. I also played Pink Floyd, Queen, and some Metallica. As I played, I noticed a girl around 12 or 13 who was watching me. I said, "Do you play guitar?" The girl said with excitement in her voice, "Not yet. I'm here to get my first guitar and sign up for lessons. Mom and Dad said if I saved my money, they would help me buy an electric guitar and pay for lessons." I said, "Nice. Who's your favorite guitarist?" She smiled and said, "I like Wendy. You know, from Prince and the Purple Revolution and Lita Ford, Carlos Santana, Brian May, and most of all, Eddie Van Halen." Nice. Can I make a suggestion? The girl nodded, and I suggested to start with an entry-level acoustic. That way, if she got bored with it, like some kids do, sadly, it wouldn't be a big loss. Her mother walked over to me and asked if I would help them find one. I agreed, and we went over to the acoustic section. We tried several and found a nice dreadnought for a decent price. I told the girl to hold it and see how it handles. The neck was a nice size, so she could wrap her hand around it, and the girl said, "It's perfect." I said, "Here, take this pick." I showed her how to hold it, and I gave her a quick lesson on how to play the basic one string at a time and taught her how to play the happy birthday song real quick. She's a natural and picked it up quickly. I found the guitar I wanted, a Flying V, and walked over to the register with it in my greedy hands. The mother said to the cashier, "We'll take this one, and I want to sign my daughter up for lessons. This salesman is really good. Will he be giving the lessons?" The cashier, who I've known for years, said, "He doesn't work here. He's a customer like you. But I have known him since we opened, and he's a really good guitarist. I've been wanting to hire him as a teacher for a long time." The mother said, "He doesn't work here? But he's so good at sales and a good teacher." The cashier looked at me and said, "There's a job offer on the table. You wouldn't deny this sweet girl the chance to learn from you, would you?" I looked at the girl, who was now giving me the biggest doe eyes, and said simply, "Please." I said, "I just retired from working last month. I guess I'm now semi-retired. I never thought in my life I would be giving guitar lessons, but now every other day I'm going to be giving lessons, at a decent pay too. Crazy how things work out." I know this isn't usually what you read here, but I thought it was fitting. And sorry about formatting, I'm not a professional writer by trade. My past life, I owned a restaurant. Am I the jerk for going on a trip with my family that my wife isn't going on? Recently, my parents surprised me, 26 male, and my siblings, who are 16 and 19, with a ski trip this December, the day after Christmas. My parents offered to pay for my expenses and said that my wife, who's 24, was welcome to come, but she would need to pay her own way. My wife and I are okay financially, but with the trip being so close to Christmas, we wouldn't be able to afford to pay for her to go. Despite this, I really wanted to go on the trip, as it was always a dream of mine to go on a trip like this. My family grew up dirt poor until I was about 15 when my parents' business took off, and now they're extremely comfortable and they can afford to pay for trips like this for us. They could certainly afford to pay for my wife to also go, but they have always been this way about when it comes to paying for things for me versus my wife. My parents think it's only fair to pay for me when we go out to eat or go on trips, because they're still paying for my siblings. I don't ask them to, but it is nice to save money, so on every trip they will pay my way. Room and board, excursions, meals, while my wife was expected to pay her way. This started before we were married. This has always bothered my wife, especially after we got married and they still excluded her, So in these past 2 years since we got married, I tried to limit the trips since they bother her so much. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip for me, so I thought she would be supportive of me going. But she's very upset and hurt. She wants to go on the trip, but like I said, we just can't afford it, which she understands. She told me she does want me to have this experience, but she's sad because she thinks my parents purposefully exclude her. Am I the jerk for choosing to go on the trip and leaving her behind? I still have time to cancel on my parents, but I know they would be sad. So, you are well aware that your parents are intentionally excluding your wife, and apparently this is definitely not the first time, and you don't understand why she's so hurt and upset about this, especially when it's during Christmas? Think about it, dude. Think real hard. You're the jerk. You really think your parents don't know what they're doing here? Save up and do a similar trip with your wife as a couple if it's that important to you. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Either she's family to your parents or she isn't, and clearly she isn't. And you're a serious jerk to your wife by letting your family continuously exclude her. They should either be paying for both of you, or you and your wife should be covering for the two of yourselves. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Bruh, what's with all the adults on Reddit who still have mommy and daddy pay for their stuff? I just don't get it.
Am I the jerk for telling the entire family that my brother is getting married after he made the wedding on my son's birthday? I'm one of 6 kids, but this post is about my younger brother who's 40. I have 4 kids who are 20, 18, 15, and 10. My brother has 5 who are 16, 15, 12, 3, and 4. We don't get together often because my girls and his oldest don't get along, and because we're a 4-hour plane ride from each other. My son's birthday is around Thanksgiving. We've always had my family on Thanksgiving, and we always have a big family party for his birthday. My brother is a busy person. He owns a large company. So I was asking him what day he'd be available for the party. He wasn't available any day, which I thought was weird considering he always tries to meet with me and the rest of our family around Thanksgiving. Then I got a text from a mutual friend asking what I was wearing to my brother's wedding, and if I had any ideas for a gift since he couldn't find a registry. I asked her what she was talking about, and my friend told me that he was getting married. I didn't even know he was engaged. He told us last year that he was in a relationship and they had just had a child together, but nothing about getting married. After some digging, I found out that the wedding would be on my son's birthday, and only 2 of our siblings and their kids are invited. I thought this was incredibly rude of him, so I decided to tell the entire family at Thanksgiving that he was getting married, when and where. Some family members made an appearance at his wedding, and he found out I was the one who told them about it. He called me the next day screaming at me for ruining his wedding, then blocked me on everything. I'm starting to feel bad, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. Edit. I'm seeing that some people are confused. First of all, my brother didn't want a small wedding. There were at least 300 to 400 people at the wedding. Second, the wedding was not on Thanksgiving. It was on my son's birthday, which is very close to Thanksgiving. You're the jerk. Holy moly. Clearly, he has a reason for not inviting you and the other family. Maybe do some self-reflection into that. You maliciously told your family they crashed his wedding. I hope your apple falls far away from the tree. Karen neighbor asks me to close my windows. I, 30 female, work from home. I also obviously live at home. I never have my curtains or blinds closed unless it's too sunny out or too hot. The issue. Recently, my neighbors approached me when I was outside taking out the trash and informed me that they were uncomfortable with being able to see into my windows and the fact that I can always see into theirs. I don't. Frankly, I could give a hoot about what my neighbors are doing. I'm either watching TV, working, or sleeping, or not at home. I just told them not to worry because I'm not looking anyways. They went on about my life and thought little more of it. A few weeks passed, and then my neighbors caught me outside again while I was walking home and they were washing their car. This time, they were much more abrasive, essentially telling me I needed to close my blinds from now on because they're tired of being uncomfortable with my windows always open. I again told them I don't pay attention to them, and they're the ones constantly checking in. They can close their own blinds. Then they said that they stopped using their patio because they can see me working and they know I'm taking glances at them. I just laughed at them at that point and told them they're nowhere near as interesting as they think for me to waste my time looking at them. Petty, I know, but I didn't appreciate their attitude. This was a few days ago. I told some friends, and naturally some are on my side and others are telling me I'm creepy and I just need to close my blinds like a normal person. Now I'm second guessing myself and I'm looking to you, Reddit. I don't think I'm the jerk here, but maybe I'm biased towards myself and my own needs. So, am I the jerk? Edit, to note, as there's been some confusion about how the setup is. We're not in the same building. I live in a corner unit of my building. Very lucky, no neighbors above or below me in my building on the second floor. Directly across from me is another older apartment building with giant evergreen trees for privacy, like 50 to 75 feet tall. They're not the issue. The neighbors with the issue are beside that building to the left, so they have to look diagonally across the alley to look into my apartment. Not the jerk. Your neighbors are ridiculously paranoid. If they have such a problem with your blinds open, why don't they just close theirs? The current situation is only bothering them, so they should be the ones to come up with a solution. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you close your blinds to keep the neighbors happy or not? Please let us know.
I'd open them even more and wave at them every time I see them. You want creepy? I'll show you creepy.
Try to pile on more work to raise your bonus? Not gonna happen. I oversee a team of a dozen folks when it's fully staffed. We had a fellow move out of state for school, a lady retire to care for her grandkids when her daughter got sick, then 3 people promote up within the organization all within 4 weeks' time, so almost half the team suddenly became unavailable. While I'm involved in the recruiting and onboarding process, management up to 3 levels above me tends to be a bottleneck. Each time someone let me know that they're moving on, I inform management and gave them a running total. We're at 84% staffing, we're at 66% staffing, etc. Ads were placed, first round interviews conducted by me and a team lead. Second interviews recommended to the next level of management, and that's where the process suddenly stopped. For a week, then 2, then 3. It commonly takes 2 to 3 weeks after hire to bring a new person up to speed to start being productive, and perhaps 8 weeks for a new person to reach 90 to 95% of median productivity goals. The existing team was ready to pull together and work harder to keep up the work, but I took each one aside and coached them that the heavy workload they were under was not their problem to solve. Yes, customers were complaining. Yes, other groups in the organization were getting frustrated that our team wasn't getting things done in a timely fashion. I encouraged them to work efficiently and well, but to not put in extra unpaid time or contribute their own resources to projects. And if anyone was insistent in their complaints regarding the team's productivity, send them to me and I would explain the situation. Middle and upper manglement across the organization started vocalizing about how little work was getting done. When I played the Uno reverse card that, hey, all we need is adequate, well-trained staff and we'll be able to keep up, and managers 1, 2, and probably executive 1 all have potential interviewees on their desk for almost a month now, I started getting the stink eye from those folks. I found out later that one or a couple of these folks that I report to and were also the next rungs in the hiring ladder had proposed the idea that this team could run just as well a little leaner, so they arranged to find out. Oopsie daisy. Metrics indicated that organizational goals weren't met because of their decision, but I was able to provide the stats that proved that the team's individual goals were met, and that in many respects, per-person efficiencies were improved. My team members got their bonus, middle management failed to achieve, so no bonus for them that year. Reply: well done. Congrats on backing up and looking out for your team. 2 years ago, I was part of a team of 6. Then 2 were let go. Then another left for a new job. Then the lockdown and 1 was laid off. Then another hit her breaking point and left. By May, I was the only one left. I tried, but didn't run myself into the ground. Had a meltdown on my boss and got a substantial raise. Let a lot of things go as I prioritized my tasks. We're back up to 5 now, and the auditors are asking questions about why stuff wasn't done in the latter part of 2019 and early 2020. Oops. I bluntly told the auditors that we had a drastic staff decrease and I was not able to do the work of 6 people. They understood completely, but middle management is now scrambling to do all the missed work, and I got another raise because absolutely nothing in my job description was pinged by the auditors. Snoop in my room? I'll leave you a fake pregnancy test to find. My mother-in-law moved in with us a month ago. I began to notice my stuff in the bedroom being touched, furniture rearranged, stuff moved, etc. I felt like I was going crazy because my husband is the only one who has access to the bedroom, and he usually doesn't touch nor come near my things. I figured it must be his mom walking in and snooping in my personal things. I told my husband, and he said his mom would never. I had a huge hunch, but couldn't install a cam in the bedroom to catch her in the act. So I got me one of those fake positive pregnancy tests, and I threw it in the bedroom's trash can. Note, the trash can was placed in the corner near the closet. Literally, the next day after I got to work, I got tons of calls and texts from my in-laws congratulating me for my pregnancy. My husband came over to my workplace and was all worked up about it, asking since when was I pregnant, and why didn't I tell him? I asked him how he found out, and he said his mom found the positive test in the trash can in the bedroom. I asked if his answer just confirmed that she's been snooping in the bedroom all along. He had a realization moment, but demanded we stick to the bigger issue. I said there was no bigger issue because the positive test was fake, and this whole thing was done to expose my mother-in-law's snooping. He was not convinced. He had me take an actual test right in front of him, and he was livid, asking how could I lie about such a thing and break his mom's heart since I know very well that she longs for kids. I got a lot of crap because of this from him. His mom and family are now calling me a liar and a manipulator. Am I the jerk? Important info. Nothing gets taken or goes missing from the bedroom, just to be clear. Not the jerk, but ordering a lock for the door and kicking mother-in-law out seems easier. If you were pregnant, how dare she announce it? So many red flags. One of you needs to go, and it shouldn't have to be you. Not the jerk. You told no lies. Even if you were pregnant, she had no right to announce it to the world. Sounds like one of you girls should move out. I wonder which one your husband would prefer. Not the jerk, but it sounds like you have a husband problem as well, since he was focused more on you breaking his mom's heart instead of 1, her snooping in your bedroom, and 2, her blabbing her mouth to everyone instead of immediately going to you and your husband. Of course, snooping is terrible and deeply disrespectful, but it's made even worse by how she went behind your back to spread the news without any confirmation or follow-up. And if she's like this about a pregnancy, I imagine she has just about zero respect for anyone's privacy or boundaries at all. Yikes. I would not want to raise a family around someone like that. $5,000 medical bill? We'll see about that. My boyfriend had to go to the ER after an accident, and he got a truly ridiculous bill back. I offered to fight the bill for him because I've done it before, and he said sure. I went all out because honestly, if we were out $5,000 after insurance, that would really mess up our holiday plans very badly. So what I did was, I had him call the hospital and authorize me to handle his bill and access his medical records. Got an itemized bill and compared the prices for each code to the fair prices. Called billing to dispute the bill, but was told that billing only collects bills. I'd need to contact admin to dispute. Bounced around a call center for hours trying to get someone who was actually qualified for bill disputes and getting nowhere. Google and LinkedIn searched for the hospital board of directors and upper management. Got 30 emails of the most influential people at the hospital, plus the hospital's investors. Every day I would send a few emails, working my way up the chain and writing an increasingly long email describing how they billed my client at 7 times over the fair price for services rendered, and how their billing department, customer service department, and the growing list of management I'd emailed had failed to address the issue. Escalated the emails until I was writing the director-level staff with the entire board of directors and a number of outside investors CC'd, asking for a written statement regarding their justification for billing at a rate 7 times higher than the national average, and sternly laying out the failures to appropriately respond at every level of the company. Well, once I'd done all that, which was honestly only like 15 minutes a day, they reduced the bill from $5,000 to $26. Yep, $26. Well, I told my boyfriend the good news, and he was at first overjoyed and blown away, like literally jumping up and down and hugging me, saying that I was literally a Christmas miracle. But then when he asked how I did it, I said it wasn't too hard. I just had to send a couple emails each day. He was curious what I had said, and I handed him my phone. He started to get stressed and flipped back through other emails, which there were like 60 of. He told me I went way too far. He was expecting me to dispute through their billing department or something normal and reasonable like that. not internet stalk every single manager and board member and investor and harass them into dropping the bill. I was frustrated because I had just saved us $5,000, actually made it possible for us to afford a nice Christmas and save some money, and he was mad at me for what I had done? I was furious, and he was also mad at me, saying he authorized me to dispute a bill, not basically threaten and harass a whole darn hospital for weeks. Am I the jerk for how I got my boyfriend's medical bills dropped? You are a rock star, and you should be a professional advocate for those who get ripped off in healthcare like this. Your boyfriend is so unappreciative and is clearly clueless on how diligent you need to be to challenge an erroneous bill. When the hospital, doctors, and insurance companies are unwilling to help you resolve their errors, what else are you supposed to do? So many people just quit and either pay the massive bill or go into debt. Tell your boyfriend this is the only Christmas gift that you're giving him. Clearly not the jerk. Yes, OP, have you considered offering this service professionally? OP, my blood pressure would hate me, and without affordable medical care in this country, I don't know. Honestly, dealing with the medical system in this country infuriates me. It was so disingenuous at every step. Every single person told me I needed to speak to billing, despite it being a glorified collections office, and the employees there not even being able to see anything but my balance. Not the jerk. Hospital billing is intentionally messed up and difficult to address issues. When I gave birth to my kids 16 years ago, they double billed everything, and it took almost a year to get it all straightened out. I pretty much had to schedule hours into my weekly schedule to deal with contesting collections, getting it sent back to billing, dealing with some other person in billing, etc. With a newborn, and while I was also working full-time. It was an additional part-time job to fix the darn hospital bill. What you had to do is not abnormal. I told my dad's wife I own the house that she lives in. I'm 29, female. My dad married a woman named Maria a year ago after dating for 4 years. My dad wanted to buy a larger house for them to live in, but couldn't afford it without selling the home he lived in at the time, which is a unique property that he dearly loves. Although I now live abroad, I like the area he lives in, and my husband offered to buy a house there that my dad and Maria could live in. My dad agreed to this on the proviso that we not tell Maria that it wasn't him who paid for the house. This made no difference to me, so I agreed, and the house they live in is in my name, and they live there. I never planned to tell her. Recently, I went back to my home country and decided to stay with my dad for half my time there. The whole time, Maria made it clear I was an inconvenience and that me doing things with my dad was annoying to her. But I'm not a confrontational person and I don't react to much, so I let it go. However, 2 days before I was due to leave, she came into my room and saw that I had my dad's dog on the bed. Now, this is a dog that my dad has had since before he met Maria and that I raised. Maria doesn't allow him on her bed, which is fine, but I've always had him sleep on mine. She flipped out, saying this was the final straw, that she had had enough of me disrespecting her in her own home, and I had to leave. I tried to de-escalate the situation, saying we should just wait for my dad and sit down and talk this out, but she was adamant that I had to leave and that she had the authority to make me. After several minutes of me trying to explain to her that it was absurd of her to try and kick me out of my dad's house without talking to him, she said that what she said went, and since she married my dad, this is technically her house. I just chuckled and said since my name is on the deed, it's technically my house, but there's no need to get technical, we should just wait for my dad. She was shocked and left the room. When my dad came back, I told him what had happened, and he went to go speak to her. There was a shouting match, and she didn't speak to either of us until I left 2 days later. My dad is mad I told her, which I get, but since then I've also got texts from her kids saying I was the jerk for telling her and making her feel like a guest in the house. This isn't the case. She isn't a guest, she's a tenant. But so is my dad, and the only point I was trying to make was that she didn't have any business trying to kick me out of my father's house, let alone my own property. I didn't take it there until she did. That said, maybe I should have just left the ownership out and let my dad handle it. Edit. For everyone talking about Maria being a tenant and tenants' rights, she doesn't pay rent, so I don't know if that makes her a tenant, technically. If it does, then as a landlord, I'm pretty sure I have legal recourse over the remodeling she did without notifying me or for my approval. And anyway, I wasn't there as a landlord. I was there as a guest of another tenant, and actually, she did have several weeks' notice I was coming in any case. I'm sure it's a legal rabbit hole, but the only reason I use the word tenant is to say that since she lives there, she isn't a guest in the home. Not the jerk. She internally struggled with wanting you to do what she wanted. It escalated due to her need to be the boss in her house.
You disrespected me in my house.
You were gracious to allow her to save face several times. You offered options. Call my dad. This type of personality will lose it once they know they don't have control. You did not make her feel anything. She created this situation. You again are gracious to allow them to enjoy a beautiful home. Maybe she feels deceived by your father. The kids need to pipe down. It was your first visit and she was not cordial to you. Not the jerk. In the comment, OP points out, 1. It's furniture owned by OP, and 2. They do not pay to live there. If I'm doing someone a solid only to be disrespected like that, I'm done doing the solid. The stepmom is obviously a gold digger on a power trip. Yes, OP agreed not to say anything, but she didn't agree to being disrespected in the home she lets these people live in for free. Daughter's friend mocks me at dinner, gets banned from our house. I, 37 female, have 2 kids with my husband, who's 41, a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. Our daughter has always been a little socially awkward to the point that we've had her tested since we suspected her of being on the spectrum. Turns out she isn't on the spectrum, she's just a natural introvert. However, this year in school, we were thrilled when our daughter made a new friend her age, since that is an area in which she struggles. Long story short, she recently invited her new friend over, with our approval, to have dinner at our house and then spend the night. So my daughter's friend came over. My husband is usually the cook in the family, and this night was no exception. He made us all a really nice meal. During the course of said meal, I asked my daughter's friend, "Are you enjoying the food?" She responded, "Yes, your husband is a great cook. No wonder you've ended up so big." The room got quiet for several moments. My husband tried to laugh it off and change the subject, but I wasn't having it. The girl had just leveled a completely uncalled for insult at me. My daughter's friends seemed to realize that she had messed up, but she didn't say anything else. We finished an awkward dinner in mostly silence, and my daughter's friend did stay the night. This was a couple of months ago. Recently, my daughter asked if she could have her friend back over, and I told her, sure, if she's going to apologize to me. When our daughter asked what I meant, I reminded her of what she had said. My daughter responded that it was over, and she didn't want to bring it up again. She then went to her father and asked. He said, sure, but she then told him what I'd said. He came to me and said, daughter's friend is just awkward and tried to make a joke. It didn't land. For the sake of our daughter, can't you just let it go? Yes, I could. But the thing is that I just want an apology from the girl. I need to see that she understands how rude she was before I can get on board with her and my daughter hanging out. My husband says that I'm being weird for insisting on an apology from a 14-year-old, especially since she is such a good friend of our daughter. I think it's weird that I'm still waiting for an apology from that same girl. Seriously, that's all I need. I just need to know that any friend of my daughter is willing to own up to her mistakes. You're the jerk. Did it ever occur to you that the reason this girl and your daughter clicked as friends is because they're both socially awkward? She's a 14-year-old kid. Even with the best social skills, they often put their foot in their mouths. Let it go. Don't ruin your daughter's friendship because your ego was hurt by one offhand comment. You're the jerk if you don't show this other awkward kid the same parental grace and gentle guidance that you probably hope others show towards your kid. Agreed wholeheartedly. You should have acted like an adult and gently redirected. Have the kid back. If something happens again and it has a malicious tone, then yeah, go all Gandalf on her. You're just hurting your daughter by continuing to hold a grudge from a teenager. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Stop it. You're the adult here. Don't pick a fight with a 14-year-old. It's clear that this kid didn't mean to upset you. You really want to sabotage your own kids' friendships because of your ego? You don't need an apology. You need to act like an adult and shake it off. Edit to add. I also think it's pretty disgusting that you're putting your daughter in the middle of this. Because you didn't properly address the perceived slight at the time, you now expect your daughter to tell her friend that she has to apologize to you, while you sit on your throne and wait. You're the jerk. If 14 is old enough to apologize, 37 is old enough to communicate that at the time. You've taken an awkward moment that this girl probably wishes she could forget, and made it into some huge issue. Have some grace, let it go, let her think it's forgotten, and let your daughter have a friend. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for wanting an apology or not? Please let us know. Would I be the jerk for taking my daughter to visit my family? My wife, Jenna, who's 28, and I, 32 male, had our daughter Averly 6 months ago. We've been together for 10 years and married for 3. We both live out of state from our families, and neither of us have the best relationship with them, though Jenna's family have made a lot of effort to come and visit, mend bridges, and interact with Averly since she was born. My family, mom who's 52, stepdad who's 55, 3 younger brothers, who are 17 through 21, live an extra few hours away and are yet to meet her. It's important to note that my mom and Jenna do not get along. Mom has always had something to say about Jenna, and the older Jenna's gotten and the longer it's gone on, the less Jenna has been willing to let it go over her head. This has resulted in us spending the last 10 years doing separate holiday visits. My plan this year was to drop Jenna at her parents' place safely after the flight and then carry on the extra 3-hour drive with Averly to mine, and then pick her up on December 23rd so we could spend Christmas Day as a family. Jenna's response was simply no. In our house, no is usually a complete sentence, but I asked her why, and her response was, "We talked about this when I was pregnant. You never had my back with your mom, so I don't trust you to advocate for Averly. And since she's made no effort to be around her, I'm not comfortable with letting you take our baby into that environment without me, and I'm not going to go somewhere it's evident I'm not wanted." I brought up the fact that I want my daughter to know my parents and her side of the family, and that Jenna was stopping that from happening, and how unfair it was to my mom given that her parents have been here at least twice a month since she's been born and have been able to have that bonding time. I told her I would drop her off and take Averly anyway, or me and Averly would fly into my parents' home airport, but one way or another, she would be meeting them this Christmas. That's when Jenna just cracked and broke. She started bawling and repeating how she couldn't believe I'd put her in that position. And when I told this story to my best friend at the pub, even he raised his eyebrow and said that it wasn't a good move. Jenna has been sleeping on the couch, and I'm beginning to feel awful and second-guessing everything. Would I be the jerk, or am I right in standing my ground here? You're the jerk. If your wife said that you never had her back, she's got all the reasons to trust that the baby might be treated or cared for in a way that she wouldn't approve of. This doesn't mean badly cared for, just not cared as if she would. I kind of understand her. Plus, if you had an agreement during pregnancy, why are you breaking it? As you say, her family did a lot to mend. Can you say the same for your family? You're the jerk. Your wife is absolutely correct. She had to put up with your mom's crap for 10 years. 10 years where you obviously didn't have her back, or your mother would have shut up and figured out a way to coexist by now. Your wife is definitely correct. You need to figure out a way to talk to your mom and say, "Now that my daughter is here, the rude comments and jerk behavior stops, period." Also, a 6-month-old is still pretty reliant on her mother. Also, I can't believe your wife has been sleeping on the couch. You're lucky it hasn't been a hotel. If I was her, it wouldn't be the couch and it wouldn't be me. I'm honestly just shocked at the ignorance here. I can't believe OP doesn't realize his behavior and how completely messed up this situation is for his wife. My stepmother expects to be the most important woman in my life. My dad is married to Janie. They've been together for a little over 6 years and married for about 4 now. Dad was a widower when they met. I'm 16, female, and my siblings are 14 and 12. Our mom passed 8 years ago. Janie has not adjusted well to being a step-parent. I think she thought she would be just a parent to us because our mom had passed and didn't consider that we'd still talk about and have photos of our mom. Over the years, she's been to therapy, and her and my dad have gone to couple sessions. In the last year, the 5 of us had gone to family therapy, and she has admitted it's hard for her because she feels like she's second best or a consolation to us, and that we don't really love her and want her. Dad assured her that we all love her just as much as mom, that she's his number one and is vital to our family. For a while, then, in sessions, she and the therapist would talk about how she feels like she's not a true member of the family, like she's a second-class member, not someone we see as important in the structure of the family. She said she never felt love from any of us, and she feels like even extended family, which she explicitly said was grandparents and any aunts and uncles, come before her when it comes to us kids. She said she sees it in so many things, including the way we don't regard her parents as our grandparents or her two sisters as our aunts. And now when I turned 16 and we did a nice dinner party, my guest list included both my mom and dad's side of the family, but not her side. My sister was the first to speak during all this, and she said nothing was ever done to make her feel bad, that she just doesn't think of her as her mom or as being her parent. Once that was said, she was talking about how much that makes her feel bad and like she's not truly accepted. The therapist asked us to consider whether we'd be willing to deepen the relationship so she felt equally as loved and as important as our dad, and dad wanted us to consider ditching our typical Christmas dynamic and spend the time with her parents exclusively this year. Then 3 weeks ago, she brought up that I had made something for class that went into details on my family, and she pointed out that she and her family were not mentioned. Then she asked me why my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were mentioned on both sides, all with their own pages, but I couldn't make room for the most important woman in my life, her. I told her because she is not the most important woman in my life. I told her that will always be my mom, followed by both my grandmas. She asked if she was just second best then, if she was unimportant, and I refused to answer. Afterward, my dad and Janie both told me that I was cruel to say she wasn't the most important woman in my life when she is there every day and has done her best. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I think stepmom needs a different therapist because it doesn't seem like she's getting a lot out of this one. Your feelings about this are valid, and dad is wrong for trying to force you to deepen the relationship when it sounds like stepmom is burning bridges and looking for a ready-made family of her own. Not the jerk. I think it's time to get blunt and tell the group that you think perhaps individual therapy for Janie so she can work on exactly why she needs you all to pledge your undying love and devotion so badly would be a better idea than this. Because if the goal of these sessions is to get you to pretend you don't miss your mom, let alone would ever choose Janie over having her back, that's not realistic, and you don't think it's healthy. Not the jerk. The reason why blended families have a higher failure rate is because the step-parent has a habit of coming in with this expectation they're going to be on the same playing field as the kid's biological parents. It doesn't work that way. Am I the jerk for telling my boss no to working weekends? I got hired for this salaried job where they really hyped up the work-life balance and reasonable hours in the job interview. Like the way they never expect people to stay late or work on weekends or holidays. That turned out to be BS. My boss got my personal phone number off my resume from when I applied, and after not long, he was blowing up my phone on nights and weekends asking me to come to work. I'd always not answer. Then when he'd ask on Monday why I wasn't answering my phone, I'd pull out my work phone like, "Sorry, are you sure you had the right number? I'm not seeing any missed calls." And he'd often say he called my own cell, so I'd say that I don't really use it much. I leave it home a lot, and when I do check it, I've usually got like 40 missed calls, and my voicemail is always full, so I probably miss stuff unless I'm expecting a call at a certain time. And that if he needs to reach me, he should try my work phone, because I'm very careful to follow up on any call to that within 1 business day. He asked me how he could reach me outside of 9 to 5, because he sees I leave my work phone on my desk at night and over the weekend. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend, so if he needs me to take a call on the weekend, could he make it a meeting request and put it on my calendar so I know to be available? Or if I know I won't be available to take a call, I can suggest an alternate time to call. He said that wasn't really going to work for him. More often, things come up last minute, and when he calls people on the weekend, it wasn't planned, and that he's not calling for a teleconference meeting, he's calling asking people to come in. I said that on the weekends, I usually have commitments that were made 1 to 3 weeks out, and I'm not often able to cancel a previous commitment with under a day notice. So if he needs me in on a weekend, it would be best if he could schedule that 3 weeks out so that I know not to make conflicting plans. He said that wasn't possible, and I said okay. He could try and reach out, and I'd answer the phone if I heard it ringing. But I wasn't always on the phone, so I might not catch it always. Anyways, I've gone back to ignoring his calls, and my coworkers have gotten kind of frustrated with me, saying that coming in on weekends is part of the job, and that I wasn't pulling my weight. I said that I don't know what job they signed up on, but in my job interview, I was promised regular hours and took my pay based on regular hours, so I'm working regular hours. My coworkers got frustrated, and said that if everyone did what I was doing, nothing would get done. I said maybe nothing should get done then, if it's coming at the cost of y'all not being home for dinner with the family. I don't really think my coworkers see it as an option to say no, so they're angry at me because I'm doing it and they're not comfortable doing it. Am I the jerk for not working evenings or weekends? Not the jerk, but be prepared to be fired soon. Your coworkers and boss are going to be looking for any reason to get you in trouble, and if you are on probation, expect to be let go. I know it sucks, but that's the way these companies' bootlickers work. Good on you for standing your ground, and shame on your company for lying to you about the job. Not the jerk. Wasn't a stated requirement, and your boss hasn't even formalized a schedule to adhere to. You don't have to be on call all weekend because something might come up unless it's specifically enumerated part of your job and comes with some form of compensation. Your coworkers are just upset you had the guts to say no to a bad organization. Weekends and overtime should be utilized as catch-up time if needed. If an organization cannot survive without this time, then something needs to change in the organization. You're the jerk. My business employs about 150 people. We treat them very well, and in return expect them to do the same. The moment someone complains about working weekends, we get rid of them. This isn't the local burger joint, we're a financial group. If I can't count on you to be a team player, maybe you should be buffing my Lexus. Sorry kids, your mommy is a liar. On the maternal side of my family, I have a cousin who is an entitled parent. Admittedly, I don't see her very often because her parents got divorced when she was a kid and her mom always got her for the holidays, so she didn't really feel connected to our family, which is fine and valid, but she lied to us a lot when she was an adult that she would come and never did, and it kinda hurt everyone inside a bit, especially my grandmother. But every time I do see her now, it's a bit of a nightmare. The last time I saw her was in 2019 at our grandfather's memorial, where she showed up 3 hours late in casual clothes. It was a semi-formal event that were covered in stains and dog fur. And the first thing she did was approach our newly widowed grandmother and ask her for money. So yeah, she's not a great person, but since her mom is raising her kids, they're super sweet. Anyway, during 2021, my paternal grandfather passed, and when he first got sick, he and my grandmother decided to give myself, siblings, and cousins our inheritance because they didn't want it to get lost between fighting if it were to be sorted out after they passed. My aunt, Dad's sis, is also an entitled parent, but this ain't about her for once. We were each given 50,000 Canadian dollars. My brothers and I immediately put the money into tax-free savings account and savings accounts because there's only so much money that you're legally allowed to put in TFSAs. One thing about the money, we told no one. Only our immediate paternal family knew, and we weren't going to tell anyone else because people get weird about money. My maternal side of the family has been fixing up our old family cottage, and one of my brothers is in the trades and doing well for himself, so he decided to buy a used boat off Kijiji with the inheritance money from his savings and then quickly replaced it. Our maternal side was told about and shown the boat, and we just told them he got the money from the trades. Well, my paternal grandmother let it slip about the inheritance to my maternal grandmother, who accidentally mentioned it to one of my poorer uncles. He makes poor financial decisions, and he told the rest of the family. He pouted a bit, but overall, no one asked us for money and understood why we didn't tell them. Since we're not getting together for Christmas this year, we were having a video call to chat and wish happy holidays before we all got busy, and my maternal cousin was there, much to everyone's surprise. Not even 5 minutes into the video call, this conversation happens. Cousin: all right, boys, what do you want to say to your auntie? Kids: thank you for taking us to Disney. Me, who isn't even planning on going anywhere near the US with a 10-foot pole. What are you talking about? Cousin: you're paying for us to go to Disney. Me: no, I'm not. Where did you hear that? Kid 1: Mommy said that you'd send us to Disney because Grandma gave you lots of money. My cousin, who had a very smug look on her face and clearly knew what she was doing, and that no one, least of all I, had said anything of the sort. Yup, and we're so grateful because Grandma didn't give us any money, so thank you. Me, who's 100% done with this and all the pain she's caused my family. Sorry kids, your mommy is a liar. I'm not sending anyone to Disney. She lied to you. And the money I got was from my other grandma because my grandpa got sick and passed, It's not from this side of the family. I'm sorry that your mommy lied to you. She shouldn't have done that. It was wrong. She owes you an apology." Everyone on the call was just frozen. And then it erupted. Her kids started yelling at her. "Why would you lie?" And "That was so mean." And my personal favorite, "Are you lying about other stuff?" Probably, kiddos, probably. She looked so angry and betrayed on camera, and my relatives started chiming in, but there were too many voices, so I said bye and left the call. My mom called me. I live in a different province for uni, and said what I did was uncalled for, but I pointed out that because of her, there was no way for me to leave that conversation without looking like the bad guy, because I was absolutely not using my money to give her a free vacation, and that she had lied too much to our family and directly caused us a lot of pain, and it was probably for the best that her kids caught on quick. She just said that what I did was uncalled for and hung up. But then I started getting texts from other relatives in the call, and everyone except for the broke uncle who's always complaining about his poor financial decisions was on my side, because she had hurt them too. My grandma called to thank me because the only reason my cousin comes around anymore is for money, and it's very hurtful. My cousin was texting mean things at me until I blocked her. Then I started getting messages from her mother because her kids were getting so unruly from this betrayal that she just ditched the kids with her mom until her mom could get them calmed down. Like, how entitled do you have to be? She demands a free trip and then ditches her kids the moment she has to parent. Karen is demanding I take care of her cat since she's pregnant. My wife, who's 28, and I, 36, are expecting our first baby. 3 years ago, my wife decided she desperately wanted a cat. I can't stand cats and all animals that stay in the house, really, so I was against it. She wouldn't stop talking about it, so finally we made a deal that she could get a cat, but it would be her responsibility, and I wouldn't have anything to do with it, and she agreed. She stuck to her word, and I stuck to mine. I mostly ignore the cat. Now she's pregnant and asked me if I can scoop the litter until she gives birth because of toxoplasmosis. But I looked it up, and as long as she wears gloves and washes her hands, she should be good. So I told her absolutely not. She wasn't happy, but I reminded her of our agreement. When we got the cat, I told her that it was her responsibility, and if she didn't want to take care of it anymore with the new baby coming, we can get rid of it and find it a new home. She said no and has been scooping the litter. Her sister was over and saw her doing this and flipped out at me, telling me how dangerous it is. But of course, her sister is going to be on her side and overreact. I never wanted the cat, so I don't see how I'm in the wrong. You're the jerk. Even if she finds some safe ways to do it, it's still recommended that pregnant women don't change a cat's litter box. You're really going to stick to this agreement for your wife and baby's health? You know it's just temporary. You know she'll go back to changing the litter box once she has the baby. But why risk your baby's health by the possibility of her getting toxoplasmosis? Just to stick it to her? To have a reason to get rid of your wife's cat? You're the jerk. The 5 years my husband and I have been together, I have done the litter. As soon as I popped positive, he took over the chore immediately. Not just for the toxins, but the smell makes me sick too. Is it really that hard to be a good husband? Right now, you sound like you suck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. My half-siblings feel left out, and I don't care. My parents were married and had me, I'm 16 female, and my brother, 18 male. My dad had an affair with Kate, and mom and him divorced. Ellie, 11, was the result of the affair, and Tommy, who's 9, was born when dad married Kate. A year later, Kate passed away. My dad's family rallied around my half-siblings and tried to make up for the loss of their mother. My mom shared custody of me and my brother with my dad. He had asked her to include Ellie and Tommy in her life after Kate had passed, and even told my brother and I a few times that they would be coming to mom's with us, and she'd be their mom now too. My mom never did take Ellie or Tommy into her home. I don't even think she's ever interacted with them. When I look back at moments where everyone was present, she was always one side with her family, and dad was another with his and my half-siblings. Ellie and Tommy, as they have gotten bigger, have expressed all the emotions you might when you don't have a mom, but you sometimes share a home with kids who do. They get jealous, sad, frustrated. They've asked us to share mom with them. They've wanted to come along when they hear mom is taking us on vacation. They've wanted us all to spend Christmas together. All kinds of stuff. They also have just dad's side of the family since none of Kate's want to be in their lives. But we have both sets of grandparents and aunts and uncles involved in our lives. A few times over the years, Dad or my grandma or uncle have asked me if I don't dislike that Mom wouldn't open her heart to kids who are part of my family. I always said no, because they are not her kids, and so it doesn't make sense to me that she would. My dad wanted to try and get my half-siblings' wish to come true for Christmas, where we'd all get together, which would include my brother and I and our mom. Mom said no. She did not engage with him beyond her no. Ellie and Dad then tried to get me to talk Mom around, and I said no, and I told them I did not want to talk her around. Ellie got upset after hearing that and left. Dad and my grandparents then cornered me later and asked me how can I say that when I know Ellie and Tommy feel left out and that they crave mothering. I told them I don't care if they feel left out because it's not my mom's job to mother them, and I would never expect her to do it. And since one can't be fixed without the other thing happening, like them feeling left out can't be fixed unless they feel like they now have a mom and my mom, then I realized it's not going to happen. They told me my mom could and should have love for them as her children's siblings. I told them Dad should have thought about that before he cheated on her and got another woman pregnant while he was still married to my mom. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. As much as I feel sorry for these kids, your mom shouldn't be pressured to mother them precisely because they are the result of the affair. If your dad is so desperate for them to have a mom, he should remarry. You're the jerk, because this is a case where you're right on the fact that it's not your mom's job, but you are a jerk for the utter lack of empathy towards your much younger half-siblings. They didn't ask to be a product of an affair. They didn't ask for their mom to pass young. Your dad is a mega jerk for sticking you in between your siblings and his ex-wife, but do remember that they're innocent in this before saying, I don't care about them. My wife kept interrupting my meetings, so I no longer work from home. I work in the medical field. I often discuss confidential information with clients and doctors. I'm not a doctor myself. In July of this year, I finally had an opportunity for employment that would give me the option of working from home. I sat down with my wife and explained that this was a good thing for us. I would be home 3 more days every week. I would still be going into the office on Tuesday and Thursday, but the other days I could skip out on the commute. I could help with my daughter in the morning and throughout the day. I could help with supper. I could see my 4-year-old daughter more. Not all the time, of course. I was still going to be working, but our car would be home 3 extra days. My wife could take our car and drop off our daughter with our parents or a sitter if she needed. We talked to my daughter and explained that even though I was home, I could not spend all of my time with her. I explained that if the door was closed, she needed to knock quietly and ask permission to come in, and to accept it if the answer was no. My daughter understood. My wife did not. She was constantly coming into the office when I was in meetings. I had to excuse myself to get her out of the room. More than once, I saw my daughter trying to keep her out of my room. One time, my wife was trying to carry my daughter into the room, and my kid was holding onto the door jamb so she didn't get in trouble for coming in when the door was closed. I finally put a lock on the door. She said she didn't like being locked out of a room in her house. I explained that the door being closed and a sign saying that I was in a meeting didn't stop her. She finally got the point, until this Thanksgiving. I was working on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and she needed to go buy something for our meal the next day. And for some reason, she could not take our daughter with her, or drop her off with either set of grandparents, or a drop-in daycare where we have a spot. She instead decided to shake my locked door and knock until I answered. I muted my meeting, opened the door, and told her to leave me alone until the end of the day. She left and texted that my daughter was watching TV in the other room. I talked to my boss, and I went back to work at my workplace starting last week. I hate being away from my daughter and my wife. My wife hates being limited to using Uber on the days that I'm not there, or depending on our parents. Now she's mad at me for going back to the office. I told her that it's her fault for not understanding that I was working from home, not just playing video games in my home office. I feel like a jerk, and she says I am. But I am the sole breadwinner for our family. If I got laid off because of her, we would be in financial hardship. Not the jerk. Working from home is work, not just being home during work hours. Exactly. OP's wife is definitely the jerk. Her husband set clear boundaries, not the jerk. You explained it so clearly that a 4-year-old could understand it. When there is a very real chance of legal repercussions from a privacy breach due to your wife's negligent behavior, she left you no choice. You have to protect the income for your family, So I don't see how working at home was still a viable option. And it really sucks because it deprives you and your daughter of extra time together. Am I the jerk for not going to my sister's child-free wedding? My sister is getting married next month to my best friend. She always wanted a nice snow wedding in the cabins we used to go to when we were in middle school. Everything was going fine until she told me that it was a child-free wedding. Now, that would be fine with my wife and I because we would just drop off my son and daughter at my wife's parents or with their godparents. But my sister had asked them to be their ring bearer and the flower girl. Apparently, they want the kids to perform their duties at the wedding, but then not attend the reception. That means either my wife or I will have to be there with them alone in the cabin while everyone else is partying it up. But wait, I'm the best man and will be conducting the reception, so it's just going to be my wife. What about food? My mom will give my wife 20 minutes to come in, grab some plates with food, and come back because the mother of the bride can't be missing for too long. So they expect me to abandon my wife and our kids, who are under the age of 7, in a tiny cabin that is not childproof, where the source of heat is a fireplace and there's barely any cell signal. This is the day after driving for 7 hours with said kids. Not only do I think this is not a safe idea, considering it would be in the middle of winter, my wife has never even been to these cabins and the lack of ability to properly communicate, but also I think it's incredibly rude to invite someone to a destination wedding where they are only allowed to attend the wedding. Although my wife says she can manage, she's really gullible sometimes and is a little bit of a people pleaser. I refuse. She's not being treated like a guest, but as the babysitter for the ring bearer and flower girl. I tried to talk to my sister and the jerk I call my best friend, who always preaches about me being there for friends, loyalty and whatnot, but they are not conceding or willing to compromise. I asked if my kids could attend until the toasts, games, and food. Then all 4 of us would retire to the cabin and let them party. No. If we could go completely child-free and leave the kids behind. No. If I just attend the wedding and retire to the cabin after the wedding. No. My sister is against all of these ideas, while the jerk has taken a temporary vow of silence. So I'm upset and said I'm not coming, which in turn began the messages and calls from everyone. My family, the groom's family, and their and our friends. My wife has openly said that she can manage this, but I know that's to keep the peace. My kids are also upset because before asking us, my sister and the jerk asked them first to participate in the wedding, and they were really excited because they're close with both of them. With all of these calls and messages, I feel I'm going crazy, and maybe I am the jerk instead. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If she wants child-free, then she does not need your kids as props. As a parent, you have the right to not attend a child-free wedding without guilt. Tell her she should hire some local kids for the gig. My sister is trying to make me go out to places with her that I don't want to. My sister has just given birth about a month and a half ago, and I went over to help her with the baby and house chores since her husband couldn't take leave from work. The problem is, my sister is an extremely outgoing person and loves going to places and trying out new things. Me, on the other hand, I'm burnt out, and all I'm thinking about for an outing is how I will be carrying the stroller across the long metro stairs, the baby needing a diaper change, and us running to the nearest toilet, the heavy traffic, the loud noises. In short, I see it as stress and a chore, not something I do out of enjoyment. For several days in a row now, I've been holed up in my room and refusing to go out with her while she goes out alone. Today, she told me that we will just go to the nearest park and that it's unhealthy for me to stay cooped up in the house all the time. I declined again, and she became upset and said she wasn't in the mood to go out anymore. She asked why I was even over if all I wanted to do was to stay at home, that she was depressed and I'm making her feel worse. I told her she can always go by herself and leave the baby with me, but she said that defeats the point of having company. She grumbled about no one caring about her and went into their bedroom and shut the door. I've been thinking maybe I should have just sucked it up and just gone with her, but I don't know why she insists on me going out too when I said I'm exhausted. I don't know. Am I the jerk? Update. I tried to knock and talk to her, but she still won't talk to me, so I wrote her a letter and slipped it underneath the door. I'm on my way to the hotel until my flight is up. We live in 2 different countries, so sorry. The kind suggestions for coming once a week, etc. are impossible. Once I'm gone for a good while. Edit to add info. I'm doing all the household maintenance and cooking, except for folding their laundry, cleaning up their bedroom, or grocery shopping, as her husband takes care of these. Some nights, when I hear the baby crying and none of them wake up, I go feed him and put him back to sleep. During the day, we can both be in the house and I'd be the one changing him up sometimes. When she's out, I watch him. When she needs to go to the doctor's appointments, I go with her and watch him outside. When we went out to outings before, I'd take care of the stroller and carrying the bags. Not the jerk. You don't want to go out and you don't have to. You gave her choices. You are there to help with the baby, not her going out. Not the jerk. You're cleaning, cooking, and helping take care of the baby while struggling with your own mental health. Your sister sounds like an ungrateful brat. Most parents would do anything to have someone take some of that extra work off of their plate, not complain that you won't be their unpaid nanny during social excursions too. I'd go back home and dial your help down to cleaning or delivering meals once or twice a week. Her husband or someone else can step up for the rest. The presidential suite? Really? Sparkly Diamond member approaches the desk. Diamond member. Name is Bob. Me. Hello, sir. Welcome. I have your booking right here. Let me print the paperwork. Diamond member. Glaring and demanding. I'd like to request an upgrade. Me. Oh, all right. Let me see. You've already been upgraded from a standard twin to a king superior with a sofa bed. I want a suite. Me. Nervous laughter. Check system. Sir, we don't have a suite available. They're occupied. Jerk. Yes, you do. You have the presidential suite. Me. Him. Pulls out his phone to show me. I see you still have it on your website. His quiet Karen girlfriend also pulls out her phone to show it to me twice for some reason. Now, let me stop here to explain some good old context. The presidential suite is 800 pounds a night. It's 3 rooms with their own balconies. The wallpaper in those rooms is $1,000 a roll. The presidential suite is really gorgeous. I look at this dude's rate, and he booked a standard twin for 103 pounds for the night. Absolutely not happening. Me. Sir, we don't have the presidential suite available. Him. As a diamond member, I get free upgrades. He shoves the available suite at me, and at this point, I'm starting to shake because he's being super forceful, like a guy who would flip out if someone turned him down at a bar. Or a kid being refused a toy. Me. Trying to defuse the situation, I look more into the system. We have a King Superior Sea View tonight. I'd be happy to give you that. But the DM complimentary upgrades only allow for a room type in a category that's 1 grade up from the one you book. And we've done that. But I can give you this one, the King Superior. Him. I want to speak to your manager. Me. All right, gladly. I go get my manager, who's oddly enough talking to the general manager. I explain the situation. He comes out and repeats everything I said. Lo and behold, he begins repeating everything I have said. He explains that we can't give it to him because the suite is 4 rooms, but he'd also be happy to give him a king sea view. Jerk. No, I don't want that room. That room is rubbish. I stayed in that exact room last time, and it was dreadful. I want the presidential suite. Also, no, he didn't, and had no idea what number of said room it was going to be. Manager. Once again, sir, I'm not going to give you the presidential suite, but I have this lovely King Seaview room available for you. The jerk whines and says, I've driven 100 miles to come here. I know the CEO personally. The other hotel lets me have their presidential all the time. And my front office manager stands his ground. The guy sighs. Fine, cancel my booking then, he says, bluffing. Manager, like a robot. That's a shame, because I have a lovely King Superior Seaview for you to enjoy. Jerk. No, I want the suite. Cancel my booking. I'm going to another hotel. Manager. All right. And he does that. So like nothing happened, my manager goes to finish the paperwork. I continue my nightly routine, watching the guy and his Karen girlfriend in the lobby fiddle on their phones. The jerk approaches. He asks to see my manager one more time. Manager sighs and comes out. The jerk sheepishly asks him to book him a taxi. Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband after he couldn't control the in-laws? Both me, 37 female, and my husband, 40 male, work from home. He works in the basement, and I work in an upstairs converted office. I also have a daughter who's 17 from a previous relationship who lives with us full-time. Anyways, last Thursday, my husband told me that his brother, who's 36, brother's wife, also 36, and nephews, who are 11 and 7, would be coming over on what is now today. I immediately told him, oh no, as today was my biggest annual meeting with one of our biggest clients, who is a local chain of retailers. I am the associate director, the partnership between our companies, and so I would have to help give a presentation. However, he kept telling me that they had just told him they were coming over. I finally relented, but told him that the kids would need to be quiet and could not be upstairs. Anyways, today swings around and I go to get ready. My daughter locks her room so that the kids can't get in. Inside, she has a gaming setup worth over $2,000 of gifts and stuff she has saved up from waitressing. I also locked my doors after I got my lunch. At about 1, they arrived over. I was in the middle of my meeting at this point. While about 20 minutes later, I hear 2 steps of small footsteps run up the stairs. They immediately start trying to get into my daughter's room, which is right next to my office. I immediately started texting and calling my husband, but he didn't respond. About 5 minutes later, I excused myself to the restroom, just as the kids went into my daughter's room. I made them go downstairs and told them not to come back up. A little later, after I got back to my meeting, I could hear the kids screaming from downstairs. Again, I text my husband and nothing happens. It stayed that way until 4:45 when my meeting was finished. I then went down to my husband's office and just let loose. Among other things, I called him some names he didn't like. I then grabbed my daughter and took her to my parents' house where I will be staying for the night. I honestly feel like I'm on the edge of divorce. This post may be a mess, but I am still worked up. Edit. I'm going to sleep for the night. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get my laptop from the house. We'll check in on her setup and all of my other stuff. I'm going to stay at my parents' house for a few days. I'm definitely going to talk to therapists and reflect. Thank you for everyone's love and support. Not the jerk. Holy cow. Interfering with your partner's work is borderline mistreatment. Divorce and take everything. I think my Karen girlfriend is using me for money. Background. I, 23 male, currently financially support my girlfriend, 23 female. I give her some of my 2-week paychecks, usually to either pay her $800 rent for an apartment I had to co-sign for due to her being unemployed. I give her $400 to cover her car note, of which it currently is in need of mechanical checkup, which I told her I will cover the cost of her repairs, seeing as it's her only way to get a job. I ask her every day if she's okay and doing well. I call at least once a day. I'm attentive. She randomly asks for money. I'll send some her way. She asks for a lot from me. I only ask for quality time, cuddling, movie nights, etc. I am aware of the whole conundrum of what this relationship is. Don't focus on why I should leave. I'm well aware. I simply just want a measurement of if I'm the jerk with what comes next. She calls me tonight and asks if I can watch her 3-year-old son at around 10:30 p.m. She's going to go out with her female cousin. I say I'm willing to babysit as long as she comes home by 3 a.m. to spend the night with me because I love her. Give and take. She doesn't agree to a set time, complains that I don't give her enough space, even though I don't live with her, and says she basically wants me to leave when she gets home. That hurt, feeling unwanted, so I said I would pass. She proceeds to block me on everything. So considering how much effort I put into her and how much I care for her, am I the jerk for saying no? I know she's struggling every day with no money. She has a 3-year-old, while I sit at my parents' house chilling. I want her to be happy, but my happiness matters too. I thought I wasn't being selfish by asking her to spend time with me in exchange, and I passed because she wasn't up to doing that. Am I the jerk? Did I deserve to get treated like that after all that I do for her? I get to say no, right? OP, this makes me sad. I can see how much you love her, but I'm sorry to say I don't think she loves you back as much as you do. You are doing a ton for her, financially and emotionally, and she has the guts to ask you to babysit her kid, but ask you to leave when she gets home? She does not love you, and I'm so sorry to say that, but that's not love, and you deserve so much better. You're clearly a good guy. Go find yourself a girl who's fun and nice and treats you how you deserve. Not the jerk, but your girlfriend is a major jerk. There's no excuses for her being a jerk, no matter what situation she's in. And do not feel guilty about leaving her if you decide to do so. It's not your responsibility to care for her if she does not care for you. Everyone sucks here. She is using you. You know she is, but then get mad that she is. You know what this relationship is. Either do every single thing she asks without question or break up with her. I'm sure you can find a more accommodating gold digger with less baggage to help you spend your parents' money. You're the jerk. Judge me all you want, but I'm in the same position she is. I'm 22, have a toddler and a 6-month-old, and I'm unemployed and not looking for a job. Parents cut contact with me and call me lazy, but they don't understand how much I struggle with my mental health. Right now, I have a couple of boyfriends who help me get by. The unemployment I receive is literally next to nothing. I don't let my boyfriends find out about each other because of course they will cut me off. I feel bad for your girlfriend because you're over here complaining and being controlling. You have to spend the night with me because I'm babysitting for you? What kind of crap is that? If you love her half as much as you claim to, then shut up and just support her like a good boyfriend should. You have no idea how hard it is for girls like us just to survive this day and age. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I think jerk would be an understatement for that girl.
Am I the jerk for wanting my wife's son to leave the house after he turns 18? My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and she has a 17-year-old son from a previous relationship. The father left her and her son about a decade ago and has not been present in their lives ever since. I know it was a difficult experience for both of them, and they have a very tight bond as a result. My wife is on permanent disability and doesn't work, so I am the sole breadwinner in the household. I've always tried to be a very present figure in my stepson's life, but I also understand that I am not his father. For the past 3 years or so, her son has been having a lot of behavioral issues. When it started, my wife and I thought it was typical teenager acting out type stuff. But when his behavior continued over the course of months and into a year, we knew we had to take more action. We attended family therapy, got him individual therapy and counseling, worked with the school counselor, tried getting him involved in extracurricular activities, etc. We put a lot of time, effort, and money into as many ideas as we could think of, hoping that something would click. But nothing has worked. His grades in school are near failing, and he is at risk of not graduating next year. He will refuse to leave his room for days at a time. He has zero respect for me as a person, let alone a parent figure. He fights us on attending therapy and counseling sessions and will not participate when we get him there. I am at my wit's end. And I'm also starting to feel the hurt financially because my insurance doesn't cover all of the therapy and counseling. My wife's disability checks take some of the edge off, but I am hemorrhaging money at this point and falling behind on bills. My stepson turns 18 in a couple months, and I'm at a point where I want to stop paying for his therapy and counseling. I'm also at a point where I no longer want him in my house at the end of the next school year. After a recent outburst from him, I broke down to my wife and told her all of this. She was unaware of the financial problems because I didn't want her to feel that her son is a burden on us. But as hard as it is to say it, he kind of is. Out of anger and frustration, I told my wife my feelings about wanting him to leave our house, and she flipped out on me. She accused me of giving up on him and basically being okay with him becoming homeless. She said she would never forgive me if I abandoned him like his father did, and that I was the jerk for even thinking something like that, let alone telling her. It's been a huge rift between us since then, and it's put a huge damper on the holidays. A part of me wants to get this all out in the open since I think my stepson deserves to know what kind of a strain he's putting on all of us, but my wife insists on being protective of him. I feel like no matter what, I'm going to be the bad guy, but I also feel like I have done all that I can do. Am I the jerk for wanting to quit supporting my stepson? Not the jerk. You're doing everything you can to help your stepson. Unfortunately, you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. While he is a minor and you have the authority to do so, have you considered inpatient help? I would suggest being honest with him. His behavior is unacceptable, and he either changes or leaves. You will pay for this therapy as long as he tries to help himself get better. This may cost you your marriage, but if you do not draw this line, you will be having this same conversation in 10 years. Everyone sucks here, but I also think you're mostly not the jerk. Kicking him out, unless to inpatient treatment, isn't going to solve his problems, only yours. It'll basically be the end of the relationship as well. Your wife has blinders on and is equating getting him inpatient help as abandoning him, and that will be their downfall as well because she'll become his enabler. Your wife being the enabler will drag you down as you are the financial backing of this family. From his point of view, I was working out a lot of trauma I didn't understand as a teen, and my stepfather and mother kicked me out and our relationship never recovered. I haven't actually spoken to her since I was in my mid-20s, almost a decade now. She's done to me. It's a really complicated situation you're in. Do you want to sync with your wife and her son? Could you tell her that as long as he isn't trying to get himself help, you're not going to waste the money and time either? Would you be okay closing the book on these relationships and going out on your own and letting them figure it out? Again, all complicated. No one is going to win. Not the jerk. This is why you don't marry single moms. All of my buddies who have had to deal with this kind of crap too. Her kid is never going to love you, and she will never love you anywhere close to the way she loves her spawn. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
He stuck around longer than I would have, I can tell you that much.
Should I put my phone down when someone is trying to talk to me? I work 12-hour shifts and get 2 20-minute breaks. Sometimes during a break, I'll sit and chat with friends I work with. But if none of them are on break, then I sit in a secluded area and go on my phone while I eat my lunch. I feel like my break time is the little personal time I get during the day to decompress a bit. We can't leave the plant, but I still feel like I should be able to do what I want with it. If I want to sit and stare at a wall, that's my prerogative. We're also not allowed to have phones on us when we go on the plant floor, so it's the only time I get to make calls or check texts. There's this guy I'll call Tom. I've been assigned the same machine as him a couple times, and working with him is brutal. I'm always more exhausted after a day of working with him than I normally am. He just talks and talks and talks about everything, but nothing really at all, if that makes sense. Yesterday, my weekend on, I was on break. Nobody I talked to was working, so I found a little 2-person table by the wall and ate my sandwich and went on Reddit. Most of the break room was empty. Then Tom came in, sat down across from me, and started babbling about work, production times, and what needed to be done. I was just responding with, and and was still on my phone because I didn't feel like talking to him and I was hoping he'd take a hint. So he brings up football instead, asked if I was checking the score. I said no, that I didn't like football. Why not? I just don't. I never met a guy that didn't like football. Interesting. Then he says, you should really put your phone down when someone's trying to talk to you. It's rude. I said, I only get 40 minutes of break per day. Don't tell me what to do with them. It's bad enough we can't leave the plant, so being on my phone is how I like spending my break. He said, well, break time is supposed to be for getting to know your coworkers. You don't have to be a jerk about it. No wonder you sit by yourself. Then he got up and moved. I told my girlfriend after work, and she thinks the guy is probably lonely and looking for a friend, that I could have been nice to him for 20 minutes instead of basically telling him to go away. I feel like just because we work together doesn't make us friends. I'm there to get a paycheck. I don't want to move up or anything. And who wants to talk about work while they're on break? I have a feeling if I did it once, then he'd keep bothering me on every break. Am I the jerk for refusing to put my phone down when someone was trying to talk to me? I'm gonna say not the jerk. He's not entitled to your break time. Yeah, it might be rude of you, but you were just hoping he'd take the hint. When he didn't, you didn't make it about him. Just how you prefer to spend your break. He can be upset all he wants. It's really not that unreasonable or uncommon to have no interest in spending your personal time with the same people you have to spend your work time with. My Karen mother is expecting me to sleep in a backyard tent on Christmas. I, 18 female, am the youngest out of 4 kids. My siblings are 31, 28, and 25. We were raised by our dad and stepmom, and our biological mom lives in another country with her husband. She wants me and my siblings to spend Christmas with her this year and has offered to pay for our transport and visas. My siblings are all married and have kids and are going to bring their spouses and kids with them. Our mom's house is quite big, and she said she'll spread out air mattresses in the living room and there's a guest room. She didn't say anything specifically to me about where I'd be sleeping, so I assumed I'd be sleeping on one of the air mattresses. Well, one of my brothers told me that my mom expects me to sleep in a tent outside. I honestly thought he was messing with me, but when I asked my mom about it, it turns out she did. The conversation wasn't in English, but it basically went like this. Me: brother said that you expect me to sleep outside in a tent. Is this true? Mom: yeah, I thought you would be fine with having your own tent. Me: why didn't you talk to me about it? Mom: I didn't think it would be a problem. Is it a problem? Me: it is. I don't want to sleep outside. Mom: I don't know what you want me to do. There's too many of you. Me: can I sleep on the couch? Mom:
No, my husband likes to watch TV late. You'll be a nuisance.
Me. I don't know then, but I'm not sleeping outside. I'd rather not go. My mom told all of my siblings about the conversation, and now they're all mad at me and told me to just suck it up and go. They said I'm being selfish and making a fuss about nothing, and that I can't expect any of them to sleep outside with their spouse or their kids. I told my dad about it, and he's now really upset with my mom and said that she's being a mega jerk and alienating me on purpose, and they had a huge fight on the phone. My siblings are all mad at me for causing this. Edit. My mom lives in Western Europe, so it will be very cold there, and most likely snowing as well. Not the jerk. The fact that your stepdad wanting to watch TV at night is more important than you being able to sleep inside tells you exactly where you stand in your mother's priority list. If your jerk siblings continue to pretend that sleeping outside in a tent during winter isn't a big deal, tell them that you'll accept their offer to switch beds with them. Not the jerk. What kind of person expects a guest, regardless of whether they're family or not, to sleep in a tent outside when everyone else gets a cozy air mattress inside? I just can't wrap my head around that. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you still go to your mom's or not? Please let us know.
I think it sounds like it could actually be fun, as long as it's not too cold in there.
Knock money off my paycheck for grammar mistakes? Let me point out all the mistakes on my boss's work. Years ago, I took a job in another country for a very small company that taught English. My responsibilities included reviewing and editing lesson plans created by non-native English speakers. Many of the lessons taught EU English, while I'm accustomed to US English. My boss, and the only other native English speaker, was from the UK. Therefore, there were certain nuances that I was unfamiliar with. That being said, I was one of the better people on the team QAing, but I wasn't perfect by any means. There were often mistakes I saw slip through on lessons not assigned to me to review, but I never purposefully called people out for them. It was kind of a crappy company and bad lessons to begin with. But if there were glaring mistakes, I would quietly fix them. One pay period, months after I had been working there, I received a decrease in my pay along with a note explaining that the reasoning was because of X and X mistakes that had slipped through on my work. I was upset as this was not a part of my contract, but I couldn't really contest it in this foreign country. The note did, however, note that this decrease in pay for mistakes made on job duties was for all employees in my department. I knew that there were tons of mistakes on other lesson plans that weren't mine, so I pulled up the first one and began sending messages in the group chat of every mistake I could find, and there were a lot. I did this rapid fire until my boss, who was sitting across from me, sent me a message that essentially said, "Don't worry, I can assure you I am being held to the same standards and expectations," before he got up and walked away in a huff. After he walked out of earshot, my other coworker laughed and said he had messaged her and asked how I knew that particular lesson was one he had QA'd. I told her I didn't know. I had just pulled up the first one I knew there were tons of mistakes on. I didn't get any more money taken out of my paychecks after that, but I left the company shortly after. Edit. Have learned I'm stupid, and it was British English. Am I the jerk because I'm forcing my parents to choose between two options they loathe? I, female 38, have recently gotten a not great medical diagnosis and prognosis. I'm at peace with it. So I've sat down with my husband and figured out my will. Obviously, he will be receiving most of the estate. He has to take care of himself and our kids. He and I both have decent, if not spectacular careers, and he likes to work. My oldest brother is a gigantic jerk. He's an addict, and my parents have wasted their lives trying to help him. They spent so much of their time and money on him, they had very little for my sister or myself. I don't hold this against them. I love my kids, and I can understand the urge to help them with their problems. The real issue is that my brother has abandoned my nieces with my parents. I tried to get custody of them, but I'm not a member of their church, and my parents cut me off when I left home to get a college education instead of staying home and helping them like a good daughter should. Their congregation helped them hire a lawyer to keep the girls away from me. But strangely enough, after the girls were out of my reach, they stopped getting any financial support. So on my will, I'm leaving my nieces money. Not for them to spend however they want, it is only to pay for their post-secondary education. If it isn't used for that by the time they're 25, it will be donated to a charity that my parents hate. It advocates for women and reproductive rights. I sent my parents a copy of my will so they knew what was coming. They're the kind of people who would take out a loan counting on money from my passing to bail them out. They're calling me a jerk for not giving them the money to take care of my nieces. They're complaining because they're going into debt taking care of the girls. I offered again to take custody with my husband. If I can have them for 2 years, I know I can get them on a path away from that church. My parents won't relent and are saying that they will challenge my will if I leave it like this. Good luck. My lawyer is confident that I have protected the money. I just heard from my brother. He's calling me a jerk for depriving his kids of help and forcing my parents into a bad position. I asked him when the last time he sent them money to help with the kids was. He yelled at me and hung up. My husband supports my decision, but a lot of my family is calling me and asking me to help my parents with no strings attached. Am I the jerk? Not only are you not the jerk, but you are an absolute rock star. I'm sorry to hear about your prognosis. It's a terrible situation, but you could not possibly handle it any better. You sound like you've done your research and you've got things covered, so feel free to disregard this advice. You might want to give them a minimum amount so they won't be able to contest the will. Not the jerk. I'm very proud of what you're doing for your nieces. Your parents suck and don't deserve a cent. On a personal note though, I wasn't able to get through college by the time I was 25 for medical reasons. Sticking it to your parents through progressive charities might feel good and I fully support it, but maybe once your nieces are adults, make sure they're able to receive physical and mental care. Tell me I shouldn't buy delicate binoculars without insurance? Fine, I won't buy them then. Many years ago, I had some hospitality tickets for F1 at Silverstone. I think it was the year Hamilton won his first season. I decided to get some binoculars to take with me, so I go to the local Jessups and talk to a very nice sales lady who seems genuinely excited at the idea of going to F1 at Silverstone. She suggests some binoculars and I get my wallet out. At which point, sales guy comes bounding over, pushes sales lady out of the way, grabs the binoculars I was going to buy from her, and asks what I'm thinking of using them for. Barely lets me answer as he grabs some that me and sales lady had already discounted because they were twice as much, and suggests that they would be a much better option. Mildly irritated at this point, I was enjoying chatting to the sales lady. I list some reasons that she told me that they weren't a good fit. Sales guy rolls his eyes, says she's just a trainee, and that the expensive ones are really the ones I want. Eventually, it takes quite a stern no to stop him from trying to upsell me. At this point, I really just want to walk out of the shop, but I suffer from the occasionally debilitating condition of being English, and that kind of embarrassment is just too much to take. Instead, I'll buy them and go home fantasizing about all of the cool things I should have said. So, card in hand, I'm just about to pay, and he asks about whether I want insurance. No, just that. Thanks. You really should have insurance. They're very delicate. It doesn't take much to knock a lens out of alignment. No, it's fine. Just the binoculars, please. You probably shouldn't buy them without the insurance. Finally, given a way out, I nod and agree, and he runs out the back to get the paperwork for the insurance. He comes back and asks me for my name for the insurance. Oh, no, sorry. I was agreeing with you that I shouldn't buy them. Not if they're that delicate. I'm quite clumsy, so I definitely break them. He tries to backtrack on some of the ones that sales lady had already suggested, saying that they would actually be perfect for me. I reminded him he said they weren't very good. Then I thanked him for helping me see that I really didn't need to spend all that money on binoculars and just walked out. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbors to be more considerate? My neighbors are a young couple in their 30s, Annie and Bill. They've had a baby a couple of months ago. The baby came home last month after 3 months in the hospital. My wife is friendly with Annie. We can't have kids, so whenever we have a neighbor with a baby, my wife makes friends with them. We have my mom staying with us, as she is no longer able to live independently. My mom has complained several times that she can hear the baby crying, especially at night. My wife says the baby has bad reflux, and they're trying to deal with it. The baby screams several times a day. It's awful listening to that poor thing cry for so long. It does feel like they aren't dealing with the baby as quickly as they should be. The baby screamed for 10 minutes solid the other night. My wife says that the baby screams when they bathe it, as Annie has told her that the baby doesn't like being bathed. Baby is always crying and it's frustrating, especially when mom needs peace and quiet to recover from surgery. Since the baby has come home, there's no longer any room on our street during the day as we have on-street parking. This is making it difficult to get mom to appointments as she can't walk to the end of the street to get her in the car, but we also can't park in the middle of the road as it blocks the road and can take over 10 minutes to get her in the car due to mobility issues. There had always been at least one empty bay outside our house, but now it's always occupied by either someone from their families visiting or one of the healthcare professionals involved in the baby's care. I reached a breaking point at the weekend. Mom had been home alone all day and she was in tears when I got home from work. Wife was away visiting friends. She said that the baby had been screaming all day long. It was still crying when I came home. I went and knocked on Bill and Annie's door to ask if they could quiet the baby. I could see through the frosted glass that Annie was set on the bottom of the stairs, not even trying to calm the baby down. When she came to the door, she apologized and said she had been trying to calm down the baby, but the new medication was making him constipated. She said that Bill had to go pick up an emergency prescription to try and help. I snapped, as she clearly hadn't been trying, as she was on the stairs, and told her that they need to be more considerate of others, and if she didn't quiet the baby, then I would log a noise complaint with the police. Annie was upset at this and closed the door in my face. When my wife came back, she told her what I had said. Now my wife is angry with me as I was making life difficult for a young couple with a sick baby and is giving me the silent treatment. I feel like I may be in the wrong because of how my wife has reacted, but at the same time, the baby is always crying, and I think they need to be more considerate of their neighbors. I'm going to get hate for this, but thank God you can't have kids. Your lack of empathy and inability to sympathize are outrageous. Real babies aren't like dogs or dolls. I would hate to see how you would have treated your wife or your own kid. You're the jerk. On-street parking means it's game for anyone, even if it's an inconvenience to others. Filing a noise complaint because of a crying baby is ridiculous. I actually hope you do, and you come back here to indicate how big of a laughingstock you are for doing so. Expecting someone to be able to magically stop a baby from crying that has health issues is also unreasonable. That's not how babies work. Just because the baby was crying when you went over there to make your ridiculous demand and wasn't being held doesn't mean that the parents aren't actively trying to soothe their kid and instead are taking a moment to catch their breath, as reasonable parents and people oftentimes do when things get stressful. Am I the jerk for scolding my sister in front of everyone while she's going through a divorce? Me, 29, female, and my husband, 36, male, went to visit both of our parents. They live 8 hours away from us by flight, and it was expensive, but we do it because holidays mean a lot, and also to see my niece, Rue, who's 5. She's my world, and I love her to death. For this vacation, her mom, my sister, Mila, who's 29, was missing for most of our family gatherings and was spending time with her boyfriend and doing part-time. We have a good relationship, but I was really worried that Rue doesn't get time with her mom and angry that she just leaves her with all of us. She leaves in the morning and comes back late. Apparently, this has been going on for months. For a brief context, she's separated from brother-in-law and she wants a divorce and he wants to try. But she came back home because they were not compatible and it's messy. So since she is a single mother, I send her allowances for her and Rue and also for other housing expenses directly to her so she can give our parents rent and focus on Rue and have a smooth divorce. I sent her a total of $10,000 and my fund money account, which she has access to and uses. She sees a therapist and I get charged for this as well. Additionally, my husband pays for her divorce lawyers. We both work hard and we're not rich, but we are good enough. I know it's not easy what she's going through, and I've never questioned her when there are withdrawals. But this holiday, I was so mad at how she is and who she's turning into. According to Mom, Rue is missing her mom and has withdrawn so much. She's not been giving them rent and not helping around the house and doesn't even take care of Rue. Mom works, and Dad looks after Rue until Mom comes. They're also old and cannot really actively interact with her. My mom was upset at me for not helping Mila out financially, as they are also struggling with 4 mouths to feed. I've never been angry as I was then. I observed her for a week, and the second week I confronted her privately. She said being a single mom is hard and she is de-stressing. I called BS and asked her what has she been doing with the money. I'm glad that she's working part-time, but what is she doing with Rue when she is comfortable? And even more angry that none of the money I give is going towards Rue or helping with her. She stormed out of the room and said I'm ruining the holidays and being judgmental and she's going through so much. I told her how dare she say that after I give her everything, even when I don't have money left to buy new clothes for Christmas because I thought it was worth it. And if she doesn't stop and focus on Rue, then the money stops. I was so mad, I forgot everyone could hear us. All our parents heard it. I felt so awful for exposing all this, but I was so mad. She called me a jerk, and so did my brother, saying I should have picked a different time. Now that I'm calm, I feel like I am the jerk for exposing her like that. Vacation has been awkward since. Not the jerk. But OP, stop the money now and give it to your parents instead. You gave that money to her in good faith that she would use it for her daughter, but she hasn't. You didn't ruin the holidays, she did with her greed. Not the jerk. The gravy train stops now. Where is she spending it then if she doesn't help with rent, which I presume should be the bulk? Your sister is a jerk, an entitled moocher jerk. If you don't like it, sue me. Okay. So a bit of background. I was a dumb college kid and in a mixer met the cousin of a classmate. We hit it off, started seeing each other, and when the red flag started going up, was looking for a way out. Except we weren't as careful as we should have been, and she wound up getting pregnant. Was not super excited about the news, but figured I had to take responsibility and at least try to make it work. Stuck with her throughout her pregnancy, was there when my kid was born, would wake up at ungodly hours to feed and change her, but still, the writing was on the wall. Things came to a head, and I finally told her I could not take it anymore. I'd happily take responsibility for my kid, but no way in heck was I spending any more of my time with her. She took it about as well as one could expect, and I didn't see my kid for a few months. All this while I was working 12 to 36-hour shifts. I just gave zero hoots. Got a lawyer involved, got a child support agreement in writing, could see my kid on the one weekend off a month I got. That was that. Years go by, kid grows, I change jobs, but we still adhere to the old agreement. Except that when mom gets mad or is in a bad mood, she won't bring my kid. Or starts just spewing crap through messages, and at first I took it, but as the years went on, it started to get really old and really annoying. So my kid is now 5 and lockdown hits, and the mom starts saying how she's not gonna bring my kid because of the risk, and I agree. Except, I eventually found out she's taking her out to parties and playdates and stuff, so it's not so much about her not exposing my kid as it is to me not seeing my kid. I confront her, argument ensues, and she says those magic words. I'm not taking her, my kid, to see you, and if you don't like it, sue me. Okay then. I get a lawyer who specializes in family matters, and even though in my country it is very difficult to gain custody from the mother, I have a pretty strong case. Mind you, at this point, I didn't want full custody, since her maternal grandparents obviously loved and cared very much for her, and she cared for them, and I had no intention of putting her through that, but it could be used as a leverage point. So we go ahead with the custody battle, and her mom just absolutely loses her crap, telling me, how could I do this? Why am I not thinking about our kid? To which I just reply with a screenshot of her telling me to sue her. So during the time that the custody battle goes on, my kid is remanded to my care, and her mother cannot take her or visit. And let me tell you all, those months were great. Our relationship definitely got stronger. Got to teach her the alphabet. Yes, she did not know it when I saw her. Got to show her my musical tastes, some heavy metal stuff, which is something she would have never been exposed to. It was great. The hearings were dragging on, and even though there were screenshots and proof that showed what a horrible mom she was, my lawyer told me it was not likely to go my way. But we got to leverage that for a better, ironclad agreement, and decided to not prolong it further. Apparently, custody battles can go on for months or upwards of a year. So now, instead of once a month, I see her every other week, plus school vacations, plus holidays. She lives in a different city 3 hours away, so seeing her more often was not feasible. Plus guaranteed video calls, plus being informed of anything that goes on with her, such as doctor, dentist, school. Now my kid and I share stuff with each other that we did not do before, and she's much more excited to spend time with me. As for her mother, she is much more civil now, takes great care of what she does and says, and I doubt will dare me to do anything ever again. Edit, just to give some more info. Her mother would be emotionally manipulative, along the lines of she went 2 days without saying a word to me because of something, even though our apartment was tiny. Nothing along the lines of unfaithfulness or trying to pin a pregnancy on me, though it did cross my mind. I don't really care about blood relations since I am very much my parents' son and cannot stand either of them and am not on speaking terms with either of them. So blood ties don't mean much to me, and that's also why I had no help from them in this situation. And as much as I would have loved to have more custody, my work schedule just did not allow it. I would literally fall asleep with her in my arms after being at work for 36 hours with 2 to 3 hours of sleep max. It was a rough time to be sure, but absolutely no regrets. Reply. A slightly similar situation when I went through a messy divorce, through mediation, and it was agreed to a 50-50 split of my daughter. I'm a firm believer a child should have equal access to both parents. Anyways, just before my ex and I were about to sign the dotted line, she was moving out of the family home the coming weekend. My ex decided that as a father, I shouldn't be allowed 50-50. Instead, access should be every other weekend, and I should pay child support. She came up with this plan, having spoken to her half-wit sister, who did the same thing with her husband. He was happy to take the back seat. I'm a very hands-on and involved father, always had been. This conversation happened in the car and is something I will always remember. Conversation went a little like this. X.
I've been thinking about the child arrangements, and I don't think 50-50 is fair.
Me. Oh? X.
Yeah, I think it should be more like a 70-30 split. Or better still, 80-20.
Me. Really? I'm surprised you would want that, but I'm sure it's for the best. X looked rather happy, surprised but happy. Me. So, how do you want to have your 20%? X.
What? No, I wouldn't have it for 20. You would. You've got this the wrong way around.
Me. No, you have. I've agreed to 50-50 because that's how it should be. If you dare try to mess me about at this stage, then it will not end well for any of us. X.
She's my daughter, and mums have more rights.
Me. Then I will do everything I can to get full custody. It will get nasty, you and I will never speak again, and I will use every penny I have, every penny my family has to fight for full custody. I'll use your health, mental health, inability to provide a clean and safe environment, everything and anything I can to get full custody. We will end up hating each other, and it will be her who will suffer as a result. X.
I just don't see why you should be allowed 50-50 when most men don't want it.
Me. Ask yourself this. You are leaving the family home. Do I have to allow you to take my daughter? X.
She's my daughter.
Me. She's also mine, but you have no legal right to take her. I can refuse, and then you will have to fight for access. X. After a pause, she said,
Let's stick to 50-50.
In the 6 years since that day, we have kept to more or less 50-50. It tends to work out that my daughter spends more time with me, closer to 60-40, and it works out well for her and I. Fight the good fight, brother. My stalker invited himself to my birthday dinner. I, female 27, met this person, male 32, in 2019 in a bar in our hometown. He's a friend of a close friend and was soon to be joining the armed forces and leaving for basic training. He asked me out and we went out on one date. I wasn't feeling it and gently told him this as one of his parents had just passed at the time and I was being mindful of his feelings. I've made it pretty clear now on several different occasions via text, Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp. He added me on them all, and if he doesn't get an answer on one app, he will try the next until I reply. He's now on home leave for the holidays for the next few weeks, which falls over my birthday. I had planned a night with my close friends, one of which is the mutual friend we have in common. He asked me to go to dinner via Snapchat, and the conversation went like this. Him. Do you want to grab dinner when I'm home? Me. I don't think that's a good idea. Thanks for the offer though. Him. Just as friends? Me. Look, I'm finishing my current job on Thursday next week. I have my birthday dinner on the Friday and start my new job on the Monday, so I don't have much free time, I'm afraid. Him. Where are you going? Me. Ironically, the bar that we first met in. Him. Aw, is mutual friend going? Me. Yep, pretty sure he said he's coming. Him. Great, I'll see you there. Me. Speechless. Him. If that's okay with you. Me. Well, the table is booked for 6 people, and there's 6 already going, so there's not any room left for dinner. Him. You'll be done by 2030, so I'll be down then. I pretty much was stumped and completely missed the trap I just walked into. I'm 100% sure he wouldn't see this as a friendly thing and will spend the night trying to flirt with me, which makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not attracted to this person. I hardly know him or speak to him. I never reach out first, but am polite in my replies and rejections. But he's just not gotten the hint and has expressed that I'll change my mind. I know my own mind, and it's made up. He calls me pet names, which from people I don't know, I absolutely abhor. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin and set it on fire. My question is, would I be the jerk if I told him not to come? Or is it too late now, and I'll just have to risk him showing up and making me uncomfortable? This is making me so anxious, it's keeping me up at night. So I'm turning to my favorite subreddit for some help. Am I the jerk? ETA. A few people have suggested that I've been saying soft no's to this dude. On each of the 4 occasions he's asked me to hang out one-on-one, I've said a hard no. Examples: dinners, a drive, hotel, and a trip to the Christmas markets in another town. I've said I'm not interested in dating anyone, which is absolutely true. I'm at a fantastic place in my career, starting my dream job in 9 days, which I didn't think I'd get before I was 30. I have a fabulous family, brilliant friends, and my pup, who's like my doggy daughter. I absolutely have no interest in adding a man to my life. Since this happened, he has found my Tinder profile, which goes unused, sent me a screenshot of my profile picture with a comment of, "Nice profile," which I replied, "Thanks." He then said, "Welcome, sugar." I then called him out and told him it's insulting to call me a pet name and to just stop because he's been told several times not to do it. He was very offended and then asked how I was getting on with Tinder. I just don't want to cause any awkwardness with our mutual friend because he and I are very close. ETA 2. Thank you everyone for your comments, advice, and time. I've sent this dude a cease and desist message and been as blunt as I can possibly be. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to change the venue, as getting a table for a large party this close to Christmas was hard in November. It's impossible now. We live in a relatively small town. The nearest city is about 45 minutes away by public transport, and it's a nightmare to get home after midnight. I've also had a long conversation with our mutual friend, and he understands that I really feel uncomfortable with his advances and knows to reiterate the uninvitation of this dude if he reaches out to him. It might not stop him from appearing, but if he does, the bouncer and bar staff will be my first port of call, so I can leave early if need be. I'll be ticked off, but at least I have a bailout plan. ETA 3. I received a response about 10 minutes ago, which read, "Hey, whatever, I'm seeing someone anyway," and then, "Delete my number." 1. I never saved it in the first place, my dude. 2. If you're seeing someone, why are you asking me to dinner? What the heck? Dude is a field of red flags, and I'm happy it's over with now. Hopefully there won't need to be an update, and I can enjoy my birthday in peace. Thank you to everyone who reached out, commented, and awarded. You're all very kind. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he acts like a needy 5-year-old? I've been applying for jobs recently. This morning, my boyfriend, Ian, was still sleeping and my phone rang. It was one of the jobs that I applied for, and they asked if I had a minute to talk. I said sure and went in my office and shut the door. I had been in my living room anyways, but noise carries more from the living room and I was trying to be quiet. Well, right after I closed my office door, Ian got up and I heard him walking around. Then he opened the door and came in. He asked, "Who is that?" "Oh, is that your mom? Tell her hi." I was still talking to the HR person, and he said, "Is that Mary? Who is that?" I got up and waved my arm, trying to wave him away, while still trying to answer the HR person's questions, and went back in the living room. He followed me and said, "Is that Kim? Ask if her and Kyle want to go for lunch with us later." So I went in the kitchen instead. He followed me again and started unloading the dishwasher. I started walking back to my office, and the HR lady said she wanted me to come in for an interview Thursday at 1. So I said, "Thursday at 1 works great." While she was explaining how to get there, get in the building and everything, Ian comes running up and says, No, not Thursday. Today. I work Thursday." I thanked her and hung up. I was annoyed. I said, "That was about a job. That wasn't Kim. You're worse than a nosy 5-year-old that needs attention." He said, "Well, you could have just told me who it was." I said, "Yeah, in the middle of a call, I'll say, 'Hold on, my boyfriend wants to know who I'm talking to.'" He said, "Well, you could have wrote it down or something. I was just curious. I get up and you're already on the phone. Sorry, you don't have to be mean about it." He's done this crap before and it's annoying. So I just stayed in my office and I've been checking emails and messing around. I'm just irritated because if that HR person heard him, I would have looked unprofessional and he was disrupting my concentration. I have ADHD and made it harder for me to focus on what she was saying. Maybe I shouldn't have snapped like that and I'm overreacting. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Set boundaries. But my whole question is, why in the world do you put up with that behavior? I would snap if someone was following me around trying to figure out who I'm talking to and it's about work. How does him working affect when you can go for an interview? OP. He thought it was some friends of ours and I was meeting them for lunch. Not sure why he thought that, but... Reply. Are you sure he actually thought that? Some people try to exert control over their partners by sabotaging things like job interviews. OP. I'm trying not to think he'd do that. He's made some comments about must be nice to get off weekends because he has to work, and he asked why I'm applying for jobs when my job is good enough. But I just sort of figured he wanted me to just be happy where I am, like he is with his job. Reply: red flags. My Karen girlfriend refused to pick up my kids from school when I was at work, keeping a roof over our heads. I, 36 male, have been with my girlfriend, who's 32, for 2 years. I have 2 boys who are 13 and 9 from my previous relationship. Their mom is not in the picture. I work full-time, and my girlfriend used to stay home and take care of everything else. I still help out here and there. Yet she would complain about the kids causing constant messes, not receiving proper discipline, accidents like breaking a vase, and the list goes on. She complained that she is more of a parent than I am, which isn't true since I provide an income. Yet she decided that she wanted to go back to work and started looking. She found a potential job, and her interview was yesterday. I called her to remind her to pick up the kids from school since she's responsible for that, but she said that she was about to start her interview and told me to go get them. I was stunned. I told her I couldn't because I was at work. She said I could take a break, but I refused because this would have affected my job. I asked if she'd take 10 minutes to quickly go pick them up, but she refused. We ended up getting into an argument and me telling her she should have figured something out beforehand. She blew up saying that I'm the parent and that she was tired of being at my beck and call all the time. The kids ended up being picked up by my friend 40 minutes later, which made them upset. At home, I got into a huge argument with my girlfriend, calling her selfish for doing this to the kids and ditching them like that. She said that she had an important interview and that I, as the parent, could have figured something else out instead of expecting her to drop what she was doing and pick the kids up. She called me a jerk, then she went to stay with her mom. You're the jerk. She had something going on that was important for her and her future, and they're your kids. She's right. She's more of a parent than you are, because providing an income isn't the same as actually parenting. You're basically letting her do a 24/7 job to avoid taking responsibility yourself. You're the jerk. Wow, she had a job interview. You already have a job, and they are your kids. Of course you should have taken a break from your job. Or you should have arranged something else. Your girlfriend was not available that day. And no wonder she's getting a job if you refuse to do more than help out here and there and hold over her head that you are more of a parent than her because you provide an income. Once she gets the job, you'll probably need to do 50% of the household tasks and 100% of the parenting. You're just trying to sabotage her to prevent that from happening. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. You want me to make a patient stay late so you can skip work during the snow? Okay, if you insist. Once upon a time, I worked in a research hospital coordinating drug studies. This one's gonna go against the grain of some of the stories here. When you work in healthcare, following the written laws and rules to the letter is of the utmost importance. We run into trouble when people begin inventing their own rules and playing by them. The hardest part of my job was convincing other departments to also do their jobs, and sometimes it was like pulling teeth, asking people to perform their duties at even a basic level. Ask a nurse to draw a basic 4-tube blood kit, you get an eye roll. Ask the pharmacy to stay 5 minutes past the end of the workday? Nope, they couldn't do that. They were out at 4:30. That second scenario is the important one for the purpose of this story. That department refuses to stay late. I could understand why they'd feel that way and strive to maintain as steady a schedule as possible, but in the world of sick and dying people, sometimes things come up. Mind you, I regularly had to stay an hour or two past the end of my shift to take care of problems in data entry. We could get overtime pay or flex our schedules pretty easily, at least in my department. This hospital was in a very snowy metropolitan area, and one time years ago, we were projected to get a massive blizzard. Every one of us, the nurses, the physicians, the pharmacists, and the coordinators, were essential employees, or whatever they called it before lockdown popularized the term, and had to come in regardless of the weather. So every one of us should have been planning to be there the next day, even if the weather was awful. We had to call in sick if we missed work for weather reasons. The afternoon before the storm was due to begin, we had a patient in clinic. Typically, patients on this particular research study got a doctor's appointment and then treatment immediately after. However, this individual had a job that made him prefer getting his clinic visit done in the afternoon and his treatment early the next morning. It was unusual, but it wasn't hard to accommodate him. While most of us had accepted our fate of driving in the snow the next morning, the investigational drug department was especially not too excited about the prospect of having to come in during the blizzard. So at 3:30, an hour before the pharmacy closes, they send me a Slack message and ask us what the possibility of doing this patient's treatment today might be, so they don't have to come in for it tomorrow. Really? You're asking us this now? This was on your docket all day. Anyway, I begrudgingly went to find the patient in the waiting room and ask. He wasn't thrilled, but says that he'll do it if he has to. I let the pharmacy know. Then they asked me what the status of the patient was. Clinic was running behind, as usual, and we hadn't cleared the patient for treatment yet. The investigational pharmacy needed at least 20 minutes to prep the drugs needed, so they told us we had till 4 p.m. to get them the signed order. The process for getting a drug order filled involved getting a signed order from a doctor after a patient has been cleared to get it, walking it outside across the street to the pharmacy, handing the signed prescription to a pharmacist, waiting for it, walking it back to the patient in the first building. This was absolutely not going to happen in less than 12 minutes. At 4:01, pharmacy sent me a very rude Slack message indicating that I'd basically missed my window to get the patient in today, and I should do a better job next time. As a coordinator, you got blamed for absolutely everything, even if it was the fault of the doctor who was bad at time management. Their message said something along the lines of, "If you don't come up and give a pharmacist the order by 4:05, there's nothing we can do for your patient. In the future, you should get the order signed and over to us ahead of time so we can prep it." Ahead of time, in this case, meant that a patient would have been prescribed a drug that wasn't even cleared by a doctor to receive it. In my training, the pharmacy director told us we were never ever supposed to do this. It was a humongous no-no and would be grounds for a massive lawsuit if anything went wrong. You absolutely don't prep a drug unless the patient receiving it is cleared for treatment by a physician. I really liked the pharmacy director, and I messaged her regularly with questions about meds patients might be considering while on study. But she wasn't super involved in the day-to-day of the pharmacy workers and tended to focus on bigger picture tasks. Hence why her employees were inventing their own rules and demands. So I'm supposed to get this patient in today, right now, eh? All right, if you insist. So I got the order signed by the physician ahead of seeing the patient. They didn't really give a hoot. Next step, in the words of the person who messaged me, was to take it to a pharmacist, eh? You said I had to take it to a pharmacist by 4:05, right? What if, instead of walking it directly to the pharmacy, I took it directly to the pharmacy director? She was still a pharmacist and could do everything the folks in the investigational drug dispensary could do. I told her that we hadn't cleared this patient, but I had been urged by pharmacy to dispense the drug anyhow, so that the patient wouldn't have to come in tomorrow for their treatment. She looked puzzled and asked if the patient rescheduled while in clinic. I told her no. This was at the request of the pharmacy staff, so they wouldn't have to come in during a snowstorm. I showed her the message her employee had sent me. Pharmacy director was unhappy with this and said someone would just have to stay late if this was the plan. I referred her to the Slack message that said I had missed my window because they didn't plan to stay late. Director was livid and told me that she personally was going to stay late to make sure this went through. We went to the pharmacy from her office and she intended to scold this employee, but of course, everyone was gone. So the two of us went and got the meds at 4:35 and I got it back to the patient. I got a call from him a week later indicating that he actually preferred getting Thursday afternoon treatment instead of having it on Friday morning and wanted to keep that schedule going forward. I relayed this to the head of the pharmacy. I expressed uncertainty with how we had handled this and she said she'd get back with me. We all got an email a few days later saying that the investigational drug department would now be staying open until 5:30 and one person would be staying late every day, rotating every day, so that someone could cover late orders. But I knew she only had 3 pharmacists and they were all salaried, not hourly, which meant some of them would be covering more than 1 late hour a week. I went to get this patient's next dose a few weeks later at about 4:45. The same woman who had asked me to break the rules was working. I asked her how she was doing and she told me she was having to work 3 4:30 to 5:30s a week, presumably because she tried to act unethically a few weeks prior. She handed me the pill bottle and slammed the window in my face. And to think, if the pharmacists would have just shut up and done their jobs like they were supposed to and come in during the snowstorm, they'd still be able to leave at 4:30 every day. If you work in healthcare or health research, don't make your own rules, kids. My best friend won't stop hanging out with my wife. I'm 29, male. My wife is 30, female. And my best friend Cyan is 25, male. We do not see eye to eye. Some backstory. My wife and I moved for my new job. Cyan was the cousin of a high school friend, so I was thrilled to know someone. We quickly became best friends, closer than brothers. During lockdown, our job was in person versus my wife working from home. Cyan is a very kind person. I think my wife hated everything about him. She thought he was too goofy and hated how he teased her. My wife takes things seriously, and she's a romantic, so things like date nights are a big deal to her. She hated when Cyan hung out, even when I invited him. A few months ago, I had a 4-month project across the world. I needed the promotion. My wife ended up needing surgery, and she, unlike me, didn't make close friends here. Her friends and family were too far. She couldn't do normal things post-surgery and wanted me to come back. I complained to Cyan, and he suggested that he pop on over to help her. He ended up doing a lot more, and my wife heavily relied on his kindness. When I came back, it was like my wife flipped her switch. Things that were immature became playful. She constantly fell for his fish for compliments, and it was like Cyan could do no wrong. Cyan still hung out, but it was like he couldn't snap out of caretaker mode. The two of them are practically joined at the hip. When I went to work, my wife packed Cyan a lunch too, and his is a lot better than hers or mine. Cyan needs this or that or whatever. She showers him with attention. My wife can be overbearing like that. At a small party, I came with my wife, and she immediately zoomed to Cyan and monopolized all his time. After he went to the bathroom, which was basically the only time she left him alone, I pulled him aside and told him I knew my wife was clingy and it was okay if he kept boundaries. He wasn't obliged to hang around my wife. I said it kindly. He turned red, told me I was a jerk, and stormed away. He left without saying goodbye to anybody but my wife. Am I the jerk? I told some mutual friends about this, and most of them are on my side. They said Cyan didn't know how to stand up for himself. He was embarrassed. Cyan is still upset. You're the jerk. You're jealous of them spending time together because you enjoyed neglecting your wife for your friend, and now he's less available. You're mad that the thing you wanted to happen, them getting along, has happened. And you're upset that at your suggestion he was there for her and supported her when you didn't. I don't know, and neither do you, whether your wife is trying to prove a point about how to be caring and supportive because you weren't towards her, whether they had an affair, or whether you're just someone who likes to be in control all the time. But it doesn't really matter. This is a situation that you set up entirely for yourself, and they have a relationship that you promoted and indeed forced by pushing them together while you were away, and your wife was in serious need of help. She had no choice over who could help her. You made it. You're a jerk for whining about it and trying to split their new bond apart for your own needs. It kind of sounds like both you and your wife are in love with Cyan. In any case, it seems that you are unhappy regardless of the friendship or lack thereof that your wife and Cyan have, and you also seem keen to fault your wife whatever she does. I think you're the jerk. This story has a lot of U-turns, but ultimately, you seem to be upset because somebody, I'm not sure who to be honest, is not giving you enough attention, which is only a jerk move because when your wife was in the exact same position, you imply she was being unreasonable, which sort of makes you unreasonable by your own definition. You're the jerk for what the other people said, but also this. I know my wife is clingy. He wasn't obliged to hang out with her. Then in the comments you say, she'll feel hurt that he's too awkward to say he doesn't want to be friends. You think he doesn't actually like her, or even that he has no reason to like her. You've decided that he's just tolerating her and she's lavishing care on someone who's pretending to like it. You're calling him a liar. You're calling her unlikable. And you brought in others at a work party to make fun of their friendship. She sobbed for you to come home and take care of her. You prioritized a project and a promotion. He was there for her, above and beyond what you thought she needed, and still does things with her that you wouldn't dream of, like letting her put makeup on him. You're jealous and selfish. You're going to lose both of them if you don't treat them with love, respect, and appreciation. But hey, at least you'll have your promotion. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife and Cyan? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for how I responded to my dad and stepmom trying to force us to watch their wedding video? I'm 14, female, and my brother is 10. Our dad has been with Carol for close to 2 years, and they got married in early November. Carol hates us, especially me. She calls me a problem child and is always picking on me, being rude to me. She constantly compares us to her daughters, constantly picks fights, and tries to parent my brother and I. She yells and calls us names when we have to go over. If one of her daughters does something to us, like takes our stuff, she just brushes it off and laughs, and our dad just lets it happen. We have no choice but to see him 4 times a month because of he and our mom's court agreement. But we hate it there, and we hate Carol. So we didn't go to their wedding, even though Dad was super upset and fought with us about it for 2 months after we told him that we weren't going. So we skipped the wedding. Last Sunday, he picked us up like usual and drove us to his house. I noticed right away they were in a better mood and that they have been lately. Carol was blabbing at us about their honeymoon in Florida. When we got to the house, Dad announced they had something to show us and for us to go sit in the living room while he got it. Me and my brother went and sat down, but we both had a bad feeling. The girls were nowhere around, which was weird. Carol came to sit on the other couch and she was just staring at us, looking like she'd won something. And my dad comes in with a Blu-ray disc and puts it into the player and sits with Carol. And Carol says in this happy voice,
This is since the 2 of you missed it. You can now see what you missed.
It started playing and we realized it was a video of their wedding. A few seconds in, it was edited to a clip of them saying I do and kissing. My brother saw this and started to cry, and I just got so mad. We hate Carol, and that's why we didn't go in the first place. She wasn't going to force us to look at it now. So I grabbed my brother's hand and pulled him off the couch and said that we weren't going to watch this. Carol sneered and said we had no choice. I told her she'd never be in charge of us, no matter how much she wished she was, and I told my dad we were leaving. I admit I shouted at this part. She told me to stop being a little jerk, and I shouted back that she's a big fat jerk who should know better. Rude, I know. She shouted at my dad,
Are you just gonna let her talk to me like that?
and Dad just kind of laughed and said that he wasn't dealing with this and went to his room and locked the door. I took my brother to go get his stuff on, grabbed my bag and left, with Carol screaming at me most of the time. I don't know most of what she was saying. It was too loud and screamy. I started walking with my brother down the side of the road and called my mom on my cell to come get us. We walked about 10 minutes before she met us on the road. Dad is mad at me, Carol is mad, but I don't care. Mom is upset only because she thinks I shouldn't have walked my brother along the road. If I'm the jerk, it's alright. Edit to add, a commenter here told me I was a bad kid who was exaggerating Carol's rudeness, so I'll say here to read my comments so you can see the other things that Carol does. Not the jerk. Carol treats you poorly, and your father does nothing to protect you from that. And it's understandable that you would have an outburst like this. You're young, and it's hard to deal with stuff like this when no one takes you seriously. All in all, I don't think you handled it that poorly. If you haven't already, I'd recommend sitting down with your mother and brother and explaining to them why you both dislike going to your dad's. You're getting to an age where the courts may actually take your opinion into consideration for where you spend your time. Good luck, and I hope it all works out for you. Not the jerk. Stepmom is completely clueless if she thinks that the 2 of you wanted to watch their wedding video, and particularly if she thought that you would think it was so cool and then regret having skipped it. Not the jerk. Could you have handled it better? Sure, but I don't blame you for being upset, especially after your brother started crying. Name-calling happens sometimes, but that's the only jerk behavior from you I see, and given her treatment of you, it's understandable that you'd snap. Your dad sounds like a jerk, and I hope you guys are able to change your visitation or something. You shouldn't have to deal with your stepfamily treating you like this, but it's even worse when a parent ignores that treatment. I'm glad your mom was only concerned with your safety and supports you guys. Karen, eager to have employee punished, mistakes me for manager. It had been a long week and a long day at work, so I decided to stop at my favorite store with the Red Bullseye for some decent, moderately priced Cabernet and some bubble bath stuff. Your girl likes to be bougie on a budget. I'm sure you all know where this story is going, given the sub we're on. A Karen, though not your typical Karen look, she had long hair and didn't seem like she was even 40 yet. Definitely not old enough for the entitlement and dementia that is Karen. As calmly as she could to seem professional, I guess, stormed up to me. She began lamenting how the teen employee would not get the things for her. They don't have the thing apparently, and he needed to be disciplined. Cut his pay, cut his hours, fire him. He has zero work ethic. It was starting to hurt my ears. The poor kid wasn't far off and came up because he realized that I'm not employed by Bullseye.
I want him fired.
I can't do that, ma'am, and if I could, I wouldn't.
What do you mean you can't? Aren't you a manager here?
No.
But you have a name tag. It even says manager on it.
Yes, it says property manager for the company that I work for.
So, you're still a manager, right?
I was fed up here. Ma'am, what does the logo on my tag say? Is there a little bullseye? Am I wearing red or whatever color managers wear here?
But you're a manager. You have to help me. You have to punish him.
Now I'm fed up, just baffled. I just want to get my bubbles, my Cabernet, and go get in my giant tub and enjoy myself. Why are people like this? I'm beginning to believe all the tales and myths of the terrible Karen. I walk past her carefully, not to brush against her at all so she can't claim assault. Her breath smells like egg and cigarettes. Once past her, I speed up and grab whatever booze and bubbles are on display so I can get to the checkout. Oh no, she's following me. Maybe if she were 60 or so, she would have given up. I luckily make it through the checkout with my 2 things bagged and have my receipt. My social anxiety tells me that people think I'm a thief because I'm running. I'm safe in my car. I don't see her anywhere. I drive home. As I'm finally in my tub, relaxing, eyes closed, turning into a human lobster, I see her. When will I escape? I will forever know that Karen is real. She's not a mythological beast. She's an actual living monster. Edit. To everyone saying I should have or could have fired the kid, you overestimate my power and you underestimate my anxiety. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my cousin's hospital bill? A few years ago, I, 32 female, took over my mom's portion of the family annual Thanksgiving host rotation. It's a fun event because I get to see family I generally don't for the rest of the year, and I love hosting. It's a semi-potluck, and I make a point of asking about allergies and food preferences. This year, my cousin, who's 36, male, told me he was joining with his new wife. They got married in July, and her daughter, who's around 8. Cousin was added to the group chat and didn't say anything about allergies or preferences when asked. Fast forward to Thanksgiving. One of the desserts I made was peanut butter cookies. My family and I love them. Cousin's stepdaughter ate one and is allergic to peanuts. I had no idea and would never have made them if I had known. Husband and I took them to a standalone ER that was about 5 minutes from the house. We stayed with them for some time until she was transferred to the local hospital where she stayed overnight. She ended up being fine. Last week, I got a text from my cousin with a picture of the hospital bill. He wanted to know how I wanted to handle it. I called, and he and his wife expect us to pay the bill. I told him we weren't going to do that. I reminded him that he had told me nobody had allergies, and hubby and I did pay the copay at the ER, $500, because we felt bad. We had an argument, and now the family is involved. They're mostly on my side, but some are getting into me for having anything peanut related, because everybody has peanut allergies nowadays. The bill is about $6,000. We don't have it. The $500 we paid came out of our Christmas budget. I feel bad his stepdaughter got sick. Ultimately, though, it's their responsibility to handle things like this. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay? Update. Showed the bill to a friend who helped me understand that this is the total bill, not what is owed privately. Also, I called Uncle, cousin's dad. Uncle wasn't at the event and has been rather silent in this matter. I learned that cousin hasn't shared that A, nobody shared allergy issues, and B, that we paid the initial copay. Uncle is now upset. I've been told not to worry my pretty little head, and he will have a chat with his son. Not the jerk. Your cousin should take full responsibility for his stepdaughter's medical bill for being negligent by not mentioning about her allergies. You are not responsible for this incident. Not the jerk. You made a point of asking, and they said nothing. Then let stepdaughter eat not just something that randomly contained peanuts, but a peanut butter cookie without bothering to check. They sound like lousy parents and step-parents, to be honest. My husband has a nut allergy, and I check and double-check food all the time when I shop or when we go out to eat. I make a point of reminding friends and relatives when we visit, etc. Not the jerk. As the parent of a kid with peanut allergies, you can't expect the world to pay attention to this for you. Ultimately, it's going to be the kid and the parent's responsibility. Peanut allergies are common, but you can't expect the world to just give up peanuts. My 5-year-old knows how to ask if foods have peanuts before eating. We've also been showing up to parties with a dessert in hand for our kid because 99 times out of the 100, the desserts or treats are not peanut safe. Very rarely does someone go out of their way to be peanut safe without being told in advance. For the 8-year-old to not ask or know, or the parents to not mention it or inquire, is a bit puzzling. Bad situation overall, but I wouldn't hold you responsible if this was my kid. It wasn't your responsibility, and you did ask. Manager sarcastically asked if I needed to go home mid-shift. I called his bluff and said yes and punched out and left. Just another crazy night in our industry, but I'm now sitting on my couch, drinking hot chocolate in my PJs. I was supposed to be in a dirty uniform shirt, holding down Section 2 until at least midnight. This is way better. Crap was falling apart hard when the manager sarcastically asked me if I needed to go home, saying he doesn't need this crap right now and that he'd cover my section. Man, I know he wasn't expecting what came next. I said, okay, and took my apron off right in front of all of my guests. I was knee-deep on my third turn in a full 9-table section and had just gotten word that some entrees were run to the wrong table. I said, let me know when I can punch out, and left my screen open so he could transfer checks to himself. It doesn't matter what happened that caused this. It's been a long time coming, and I'm writing my resignation letter as we speak. But it sure felt great putting my coat on and punching out, just as the kitchen was begging the manager to please give them 10 minutes on Expo. And a server was complaining that her drinks were taking 20 minutes, and my entire section's worth of drinks and food orders were still written in my book and not rung in. I left a pile of scrap paper at the computer terminal for him to ring in everybody's orders. I'm pretty good about writing things down and crossing them off when they get rung in. But even still, if someone handed me the crap pile I handed him, I'd cry. My handwriting sucks, and I write all over the page like a lunatic. Not to mention the misdelivered entree debacle that now needed his immediate attention, and the poor kitchen and bar that were dying for his attention. I highly doubt he's having a better night now that he's down a server suddenly on a packed Friday night. But like he said, he doesn't need this crap, so I'm about to stream A Christmas Story because my cats haven't seen it yet. I hope he remembers to bleach the stairs as part of his closing side work tonight. How much simpler would it have been if he had just asked if you needed a hand? Dug his own grave, but it sounds like it was already quite deep. OP. He did ask a million times, and in his defense, he's very hands-on, and I ask him all the time to do things for me. He's a great manager in that respect, actually. Tonight, he kept asking if I needed anything, and what I actually needed for him to do was to tell the new training manager to leave me alone. She's been micromanaging me over the last few weeks, and I've had it with her. She was actually getting in my way tonight, she was so on top of me. I'd turn to move fast, and suddenly I'd smack right into her, and she'd be saying something stupid like, "Make sure you offer table 13 to-go bags." So anytime the real manager asked what I needed tonight, I kept saying things like, "I'm fine, I just need a little trust tonight that I can do this job." Or, "I literally just need to get to table 12, like just get there physically, without a manager in my path holding water bottles out at me to go fill them ASAP. Can you maybe fill waters for the jerk manager so I can get to my tables since she thinks it's the only priority around here?" In his defense, I was passive-aggressive and crappy. In my defense, him and I have always talked to each other this way, kinda like, "You know what I'm saying, don't make me say the quiet part out loud." And I've approached him about this manager. He knows what I was saying. So yeah, both our faults tonight. I'll own half of it. I finally kicked my Karen daughter out of the house. My daughter recently told me and my wife that she's pregnant, and apparently she's been hiding it for 3 months. The boyfriend is a scumbag who I thought she left after I gave her an ultimatum to either leave him or leave my house, to which she chose the latter, or at least I thought she did. She started sobbing and telling us how sorry she was and that it was just a big mistake. I told her the only way she can stay in our house is if she gave the baby up for adoption, because we won't allow it to ruin her life. She just kept pleading to us that she'll take care of it, but I had a very hard time believing her after I just found out she's been lying to me for months and going behind my back to see her boyfriend. My daughter refused to give her baby up, to which I decided to kick her out of my house, and now she's staying with a friend for I don't know how long. My wife has been incredibly sad and is now telling me what I did was wrong. It wasn't an easy decision for me to make, but I couldn't allow her to walk away without any consequences. At her age, I was already taking care of myself, so I don't look at it the same way others might. Is it really wrong for me to kick my adult daughter out of my house after she lied to me? I'm willing to see if I've taken things too far. You're the jerk. You know forbidding your daughter from seeing her boyfriend is just going to make him more desirable, right? And how is kicking her out when she's pregnant, vulnerable, and in need of stability and love going to help? Yeah, not great parenting, I would say. Edit. Getting a few responses saying, OP set his rules and his daughter made her bed. Now she has to live with the consequences. Setting rules is one thing. Kicking out your daughter when she is most desperate is going to be the jerk choice 99.9% of the time. OP is choosing his rules over supporting his daughter. Not the jerk. If she expects for you to shoulder the expense and take on childcare duties you didn't agree to, you've put her in a very difficult position, and I can see why a lot of people think you are the jerk, but I would have done the same. Although, I would have had a serious conversation first about what I am willing and unwilling to do. Set very firm rules and boundaries as to my involvement and financial help, which she has to accept if she wants to return. If she chooses to keep the baby and I'm financially able, I would help in initially setting her up outside of my home, as I have no interest in raising another baby in my 40s, but I'm not going to financially support her forever. That being said, I would not leave her with completely no options, no support, and no help. If you let her come back with her choosing to keep the baby, know that there will be responsibilities expected from you that will fall on you and your wife, considering she's only 19. Is she working? How will she support herself? Is she going to pursue getting child support from the father? Either way, it's a difficult decision to make. Best of luck to you and your daughter. Not the jerk. If you let her stay, you and your wife will be the ones raising that baby while she runs around getting into more trouble and having more kids. She'll know that she can count on mom and dad to keep providing while she keeps doing her thing. I'm disgusted by all the people here telling you you're in the wrong. The good thing is they will be in the same position in about 30 years. Then they will get to be the 41-year-old grandparents raising babies. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for kicking his daughter out or not? Please let us know. Karen's brats refuse to eat my Christmas dinner. I, 31 female, am going to be hosting Christmas celebration this year. The menu is usual and everyone is familiar with it. My sister-in-law's kids are what they call the most vicious picky eaters out there. Mind you, they're 6 and 9 and are probably just being deliberately difficult to their parents. Sister-in-law called to inform me that she will be bringing food for her kids to eat at Christmas dinner. I asked her why, and she said that they will not be able to eat anything from the menu after looking at it. I said that I was sorry, but there isn't enough space at the table for extra meals. And besides that, the kids should really start learning to be more tolerant to some foods, especially at family holiday gatherings where it's expected for everyone to just eat what's in front of them without complaining. She went on about how difficult kids can be. Mostly can't relate, but I get it. But still, she should keep in mind that it's probably a passing phase for them, so sucking it up for one dinner wouldn't affect them. She said that I don't get it and that she doesn't want them to stay hungry or feed on snacks. I apologized and declined. My husband got involved in this, and he's saying I'm being inconsiderate towards my guests. He said that I lose nothing by allowing them to bring food, but I disagree because this was not part of my plan. And if anything, this should be a teachable moment for the kids to know that they can't expect to be catered for all the time. He got more upset and told me that his sister is heavily reconsidering coming to a celebratory dinner where her kids weren't allowed to bring their own food. They're applying pressure on me, saying I'll ruin the celebration if I keep trying to die on this hill. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. It's not your place to provide a teachable moment. Get over yourself. She's not asking you to cook special food, and she's bringing it herself. Their food can be put on their plates, so your no room argument makes no sense. Make sure to dress up as Scrooge for the meal. You're the jerk. Exactly. You don't get to choose the teachable moments for someone else's kids. Your husband's right. It costs you nothing to be gracious. You don't have to do anything extra. She was just being courteous by giving you a heads up. Don't make this a thing. Let everyone enjoy the day. Ironically, this is a perfectly teachable moment for OP, that you're going to have to accept things will not play out the way you want them to when you have events like she is doing. You're the jerk. Either you want to dictate what people are eating, or you want to enjoy your family at a holiday gathering. These posts about inhospitable hosts are getting tedious. I prepare all of our family's holiday meals, and I could give a rat's backside if people bring a favorite dish of their own food. And your excuse, there isn't enough space at the table for extra meals, is ridiculous and absolute malarkey with a side of horse manure. You're the jerk. Why are you so intent on ruining Christmas for kids? This won't actually put you out at all. You're just gatekeeping Christmas dinner for some weird reason. I mean, I can be a control freak, but I've got nothing on you. Methinks your heart needs to grow a couple of sizes. P.S. No one likes the sound of kids crying because they're hungry and don't like the food. Don't make everyone listen to it. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Bruh, unless your kid has actual dietary restrictions, they need to learn to just shut up and eat what's served at the dinner. The world's not always going to revolve around them and what they want, and they should learn that sooner than later. Stop raising entitled brats. Don't at me.
It's Reddit, Karen. You're expecting a little too much of these people. They wanted to start messing with the cat that I told them not to. This happened about 4 years ago, and I still laugh about it to this day. My older cousin had a cat named Tara when she was younger. Tara was a total loose screw, and she would bite and scratch anyone who so much as looked at her funny. And don't get me started when you dare disturb her sleeping. Never mess with Tara when she's sleeping. Tara only really felt comfortable around my cousin and I. She liked me because I usually helped my cousin feed her because I wanted to know what it was like taking care of a cat, as I want my own. Plus, I was already close with my cousin. Now here's where it gets good. My aunt and uncle were having a little family gathering, and they decided to invite some of their close friends. Among them were their demonic kids, Mini Bigfoot, who was 6, and Mini Yeti. Those two couldn't sit still or shut up for at least 1 second, and the parents just let it all happen. They would use the excuse, "They don't know any better." They probably would if you set a boundary or something at least. So while they're downstairs terrorizing the adults and anyone else who was brave and patient enough to be in the same room as them, me, my cousin, and her friend all just chill upstairs. They both are talking about some stuff with school and all that nonsense that I didn't bother listening to. They both leave the room to go run a few errands and buy some more cat toys, as Tara had demolished the previous ones. So now I'm left in the room alone with a little furball that's curled up on the bed having a darn good nap. Then I hear the sounds of rapid footsteps, and I didn't need to peek out to see who it was. Both gremlins walk in the room and immediately point out all the drawings on the walls of Nintendo characters. My cousin loves Nintendo. Then little Mini Bigfoot has to point out that there's a fluffy kitty on the bed. They reach over to pet her, and I inch their hands away and tell them to not disturb her. For some background, I already had a bad beef with these two, because when they were at our house, Mini Yeti pulled my dog's ear and tail constantly and wouldn't stop. Mini Yeti starts to whine about how much she loves cats and she wants to cuddle the itty-bitty kitty. I tell her that Tara hates when her sleep is disturbed, and they still wouldn't go away. They went downstairs to tell their parents, and they told me, "Let them pet the cat. It's not even yours, and it's just a cat." I tried reasoning with them, and even my aunt and uncle sided with me, but they still wouldn't understand, as they swore it was just a regular house cat. I walked back upstairs, and suddenly I got a huge grin on my face. I told the kids that they can go play with the cat, and they started laughing at me and taunting me, but soon the tables would turn. They went inside of the room, and I camped outside the door. For about 5 seconds, I could just hear the "wow" from one of the kids. Then it finally came. An ear-piercing hiss and loud meow, followed by a distant sound of clothes stretching and gremlins screaming. They both sprinted out of the room crying, and the Mini Bigfoot had a big scratch going down his right arm. Little Yeti had it worse, as her nice new shirt was absolutely ripped, and the cat had got her on the arm too. Their parents were furious at me and commanded me downstairs to scold me. They asked how could I let that cat scratch them like that and not do anything about it. I was gonna say something, but then my dad's face went white as he pointed at the stairs. We looked, and guess what we saw? At the top of the stairs, Tara was right there with her tail hunched back and her ears folded flat against her head. To add to that, the lights upstairs were off, so her eyes were glowing. The dad of the two kids thought it would be a good idea to punish a cat that wasn't his, so he marched up the stairs while staring down Tara. Bad move, because Tara then leapt off the stairs and landed right on the dude's back and cut a huge cut in his shirt in the process. She then climbed off, then just went back up the stairs and went to sleep again, like she didn't just almost hurt them. When my cousin got back, we told her about the story, and she was mad at first. Then she started to laugh when we mentioned her cat wasn't hurt. Tara got a nice plate of tuna for dinner and a good back rub as a reward. Forgot to mention, Tara's still alive and kicking with my cousin. She's way different than she was years ago, as Tara takes time to warm up to strangers and doesn't just go full Bengal tiger mode on new people. She's way more lazier now as well. But one thing will always stay with that cat, and that's that you do not disturb her when she's sleeping. You will catch those paws if you wake her up. Am I the jerk for telling my husband I refuse to be a stay-at-home mom? My husband and I are expecting, and I am 5 months pregnant. We are over the moon and so looking forward to meeting our son. My husband owns and runs his own business, and so do I. We are both very happy with our jobs. Recently, we started talking about schools, childcare, and jobs, etc. Now, it's important to note that my husband and I are very safety-oriented and wary of people we don't know. I stated that I'd like to go back to work pretty soon after the baby is born. I'm looking forward to spending time with the baby, but I am in no way interested in staying home with him full-time. I'm imagining being back full-time when he's around 8 to 10 months. My husband was under the impression that I'd be staying home with the baby until he goes to kindergarten, maybe even longer. I was a bit taken aback because I had no idea why he thought this. He stated he wasn't really comfortable with leaving our kid with a sitter. Note, nannies are hard to come by where we live, and we both require some certain safety requirements for said nanny, which makes it hard to find someone suitable. I told him I wanted to start looking into nannies before the baby was born, so that they could get to know the baby during my maternity leave. That way, they would both be familiar with each other by the time I go back to work. He started arguing a bit about what our expectations were. I understand not every mom would be comfortable with my choices, but I cannot handle being a stay-at-home mom. I know it would mentally tear me apart, and it has no appeal to me. We're both in control of our own work hours, so it's not like we won't spend any time with the baby. We just both love our jobs and also need time to be people and not just parents. He said I was the jerk for not wanting to stay home until the baby starts school, and I said he was being a jerk for expecting that of me. He's respecting my decision and he supports me no matter what I decide. I recognize where he's coming from, but I just cannot for the life of me be a stay-at-home mom. But I guess I do feel a little bad because I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. Info: his business requires a bit more of him and requires him physically showing up for some parts of the job, which is why he cannot be the one to stay home. I have every means and access to stay home, I simply just do not want to. Am I the jerk for not staying home? Edit: it's an accidental pregnancy due to failed birth control, but we are now very happy. We've also talked about it in the past where he didn't show any discomfort with childcare. Guess we're all a little more overprotective when it comes to our own kids. Edit 2. I'm seeing a lot of comments stating, why didn't we have this conversation before marriage? We have. My husband and I have had this conversation, and we both decided we wanted to be child-free. We talked about it before we got married and have talked about it a lot since. We've even talked about accidental pregnancy, but never thought it would become real. This is a matter of failed birth control, and we just found out I was pregnant in month 4, so we weren't really left with many options. Furthermore, my husband changed his mind about outside childcare once we were actually in the situation. Guess parental protectiveness kicked in. Not the jerk. OP, do not let your husband guilt trip you into thinking you're a bad mom or a bad wife if you don't stay home. Once you start staying home, the dynamics of your relationship will change, no matter what your husband says. Plus, going back to work will be much, much harder. Now it'll be your job, and your job alone, to make sure your kid gets to school on time, has a ride home, gets meals on time, and overall just is prepared for daily stuff. If your husband isn't willing to make sacrifices so he can stay home, then he should not be expecting you to stay home. Period. Not the jerk. You state, he is respecting my decision and he supports me no matter what I decide. Are you delusional? No, I'm kidding. But he's not supporting your decision since you feel like this. If this is so important to him, he can make the sacrifice. Oh wait, you say he can't? Well neither can you. He doesn't seem to support the fact that your mental health and love for your career exists. You both need to talk more about this. Will you be expected to be the one who drives the kid to school and picks them up every day? Sports activities? Friends' houses? Is he just providing the money? What's going on here? I'd recommend writing down some important points and sharing them. Or maybe move to an area where you can find the support for raising this kid how you two would like. There are a lot more options than being a stay-at-home mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom, not by choice, and it has destroyed me. I'm not the person I was. I'm a hollow shell. Please don't get sucked into this. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for making comments about someone not being able to have kids because she called me Kim Kardashian? I, 40 female, freely admit I love social media and pretty much share my life as per many people. I'm very proud of my accomplishments and deserve to share them. I have 2 beautiful kids, mid-teens, who I raise well. I train hard and take a lot of care over my appearance and clothes choices. I work hard and look after my beautiful home. We're also lucky to enjoy nice holidays. I share most of this as well as venting about, say, poor customer service, and most of my friends expect this. I accept this isn't for everyone, but they can just scroll past. This involves my sister's sister-in-law, her husband's sister. Let's call her Sam, 45. We are linked on social media and see each other occasionally at my sister's. My sister and Sam post a bit, but not much, and rarely comment on my posts. Up to them. Sister has 2 kids who are in their late teens. Sam does not have kids. I heard unofficially from my sister a few years ago that she had had fertility treatments which hadn't worked. We've never spoken about it. Sister's daughters adore Sam. She's also their auntie. When she's there, I don't get a look in. She spoils them. I think she does it on purpose. We were at sister's house for a pre-Christmas party. I was taking photos, and eldest niece, who's 16, wanted to vet them before I posted them. This went on a bit too long. She looked good in all of them. My daughter does the same, and I eventually made an executive decision to post the perfect picture anyway. Niece was upset. Sam took her side. Sister was out of the room and said it was up to my niece. I said she couldn't always get her own way. She needed to learn life was about compromise. Sam said we weren't the Kardashians and niece had the right to veto. Calling me Kim Kardashian felt so disrespectful, and I said I was proud of my family and she would understand if she had had her own kids. She flinched but didn't really respond and was icy to me all evening. My husband apologized to her on my behalf, which she didn't even accept, and niece actually shouted at me. Later, my sister and even brother-in-law were angry when they found out. They called me later. But I didn't refer to her infertility, and what she said was really disrespectful, as if she was better than me. Am I really the jerk here? You're the jerk. Sam was absolutely correct. You shouldn't have posted the picture knowing your niece didn't like it. Second, having kids has nothing to do with this. You're not your niece's mom, and neither is Sam. The 2 of you were having this conversation as aunts. You only threw in the comment about Sam not having kids to shut her up. Finally, you know that Sam wanted kids and was unable to have them, so for you to use the fact that she's childless to win an argument was just wrong. My manager had me leave the new girl waiting tables on her own, so I took her at her word. I, 17 female, am a waitress/server/cashier at a semi-local Italian chain. Not going to say which, but it is considered a specialty of the DMV area. I recently had to take a month off of work for health reasons since I was in the emergency room and then had to spend time in inpatient. While I was away, there were huge changes at my job, including new managers and 2 new employees. I've only been working there since last June, but I picked things up pretty quickly. Barring the first day, I had to deal with a packed dining room by myself while still in training. I'd messed up pretty badly with the computer system and needed the manager's help. Still, it happens. Yesterday, I met the new girl for the first time. It was her 3rd day still in training. She's my age and a complete sweetheart, and as the dining room slowly became more and more packed, we made a great team. She got to practice working with the computers and talking to customers while I took down the orders and showed her how everything worked. It was her first time properly serving there, and she really did great considering that, certainly at first. The other 2 people who were working were a manager and 1 other hourly employee. The managers at my job will also serve and work the counters. Basically, all waitresses have to do double the work, and we still get paid dirt, but that's another story. I was running between the dining room and the counters to try to keep up, although we can only serve max 2 people at the counters picking up or placing orders at a time. It was to the point where my manager and her friend had bundled up and complained about how cold it was, but I was flushed, with my coat off, covered in sweat. Clean myself up when dealing with the food, of course. The manager and her friend were sitting down together, alternating between scrolling on their phones and talking, only getting up to answer the phones when they had already rung 5+ times and having people wait at the counters to be helped for 10+ minutes. It was massively irritating, but I didn't have the time or energy to confront them. Well, about halfway through my shift, my manager told me that I can't just go in between the dining room and the counter, and if I didn't pick one or the other, she'd withhold my tips for both, since I wasn't fully invested in either. Ouch. She gave me a choice on paper, but in reality made it perfectly clear that I was stuck behind the counter and the new girl, the trainee, was on her own. There was nothing I could really do, so I just stayed at the counter. Though that was plenty slammed in and of itself, and I really could have used my 2 coworkers who were messing around on their phones. I didn't have time to answer phone calls, pack up orders, check people out, and take to-go orders all at once, and I had one particularly angry woman call me a lazy jerk for leaving her on hold for about 2 minutes. That stuck with me. While I was doing all of this, the new girl was stuck with a packed dining room and no help. About 20 minutes into it, my manager approaches me looking both angry and sheepish. Basically, the trainee had messed up and charged the wrong orders to the wrong cards and needed help. Though the way she phrased this was,
You know, you don't have to stay by the counter the whole time. That's not what I meant.
I looked over and could see her friend on her phone still, and the manager herself still had AirPods on and a show playing on her own phone screen. I responded in my sweetest, most respectful voice, I'm sorry, but as we only get paid $10 per hour, my tips are too vital for me to forfeit them, so I'm going to stay put. Context, minimum wage is $15.65 where I live. She was floored, and instead of helping either of us herself, waddled back to her seat and resumed her show. Of course, I ended up checking in with the trainee and asked if she needed my help and if the mistake was sorted out. She said that she had things back under control and a lot of the people dining in were headed out, which was great because the counter was still slammed. The kicker? This morning, apparently a customer called in and complained that the blonde girl, me, and the girl with braids, the trainee, were so busy that they were sweating, while the 2 other women, the manager and her buddy, were sitting on their phones. I only wish I saw her face when she heard about that complaint. Not enough Big Mac sauce? I got you, bro. I was working at McDonald's about 10 years ago. Despite what people might think, there's actually a lot of work involved since we only had 6 people trying to do the work of 20. Likewise, getting yelled at all day in a 100+ degree kitchen, 37+ Celsius, is also less pleasant than any other jobs I've worked. Oh, what's that? Drive-thru needs 20 McDoubles and you only have 19? Gee, I wonder if front counter took one of your McDoubles. If you insist, I'll make an extra McDouble for you. Oh, hey, what do you know? We have an extra McDouble now. Just the smell of grease now makes me want to chain smoke, even though I quit 5 years ago. Does that mean I think everyone deserves $15 an hour? Irrelevant. No matter how much someone makes, treat them with dignity. Not like they're some animal just because they're making sandwiches for you. We're all human beings and we're all deserving of love. You can't pay me enough to take that away, and you can't pay me too little to deem me unworthy of that. I say all that just to say, I worked as hard as I could every single day, but sometimes things just rubbed me the wrong way so much that I completely acted like a fool over it. This was one of those times. I realized in the moment I could probably get fired right now. I realized looking back, I'm really lucky I didn't get fired for that. Here's what happened. A guy comes in and asks for a McDouble with mac sauce, so I make a normal McDouble and I put a shot of mac sauce on it. We now have a McDouble with mac sauce. Crazy concept, I know. The manager comes back a minute later making a big scene. Manager: This guy wanted mac sauce. Give him a McDouble with mac sauce on it ASAP. I'm pretty sure the whole lobby could hear it, maybe even people in the parking lot. Me: I put mac sauce on it. Manager: Then put extra mac sauce on it. Okay, so it's extra mac sauce you want? Oh, I've got extra mac sauce for you, friend. Here's one extra shot, and here's another one just for your trouble. But wait, that's only one extra mac's worth. Did you possibly want an extra Big Mac's worth? Here's another 2 shots for you. 12 shots of Big Mac sauce later, I thought. I hope this is sufficient enough for him. What we actually had at this point was a pile of mac sauce with a side of McDouble. If anyone was paying attention, they could see the mac sauce oozing through the paper. Me. 1 McDouble, extra mac sauce. It gets sent out. A few minutes later, the manager comes back looking very disappointed. The customer is looking at me like I just got done robbing his house. The manager says, "Okay guys, this is completely disgusting. Can we please get a McDouble with just a little bit extra mac sauce?" What was that? Please? Why didn't you say so in the first place? Why yes, you may have a McDouble with a little extra mac sauce. The new McDouble got sent out, the man enjoyed his meal, and we all lived happily ever after. Grandma attempts to ruin our Christmas. This story is about my paternal grandmother. Let's call her Miss F. It takes place over the course of about 1 year in the blessed pre-lockdown times. Before we get into it, however, let's give you some background on Miss F and my relationship with her. Miss F owns 2 houses next to the school I attended before leaving my hometown to study at university. My dad used to pay me to do some chores around her house, which she wasn't able to do herself due to some disabilities stemming from long-term alcoholism. I've heard some stories about her behavior from different family members, and she was divorced 5 times. While working for her, I quickly realized how difficult she could be, but I always thought my family members were exaggerating. That was until this story happened. So let's get into it. Back in the summer of 2018, I was visiting my parents in my hometown. I had been living elsewhere for about 3 years at that point. I decided to visit Miss F as I had a pretty good relationship with her back then. I was one of the few family members that was actively in contact with her for other than financial reasons, and she seemed excited about my visit as we hadn't seen each other in about a year. When I called her to set up the time and date, she asked me whether it was possible for me to borrow my mom's car. I don't own one myself, to help her pick up some furniture she wanted to add to a room for a live-in housekeeper. I cleared everything with my mom as I thought it wouldn't be much trouble. The day came and she picked up so much furniture it barely fit into the car, but everything seemed fine. I carried the furniture into the designated room through 3 very narrow staircases. It was a very old house in Germany. Afterwards, we had some coffee and cake together before I left. I then dropped off my mom's car and headed out to party with some friends from school whom I hadn't seen in a while. The next day was when everything began. At around 9 a.m., I was still slightly hungover from the great party the night before. She called me, demanding to know where I was, since I apparently agreed to help her assemble the furniture we bought. This was never agreed upon. She also demanded that I would bring the car again, as she had forgotten to pick up some things the day before. The car, however, wasn't even in town, since my mom, the car's owner, needed it that day and had already left. I tried to explain to her that the car wasn't available that day, that we hadn't agreed to me helping her out the next day, and that I was in no condition to drive and build furniture, even if I wanted to. I did offer to reschedule to another day that week, but she wouldn't have it. She couldn't accept that it was literally impossible for me to fulfill her request, and the debate got heated. I don't remember specifics, but she tried to guilt trip me, which is when I snapped and told her that I wasn't her flying monkey here to serve at her pleasure. She hung up after that, and I thought that would be that. Over the course of the week, I tried calling her several times, since I still wanted to help, but wasn't able to reach her before I had to go back to my university town. Fast forward to Christmas 2018. I was back at my parents' place for the holidays, and the last interaction I had with Miss F was the phone call I just described. On Christmas Eve, my dad told me that she would be joining us for dinner, as was tradition, and that she wanted me to pick her up. Now, due to my dad's job, it was up in the air whether he would be able to join us that evening. So he added that Miss F would only attend if he was also there. In case he wasn't, I was just supposed to pick up the presents from her place. As it turned out, Dad had to work that night, so I just went and picked up the bag of presents. This was an ordeal in itself. I drove to Miss F's place, parked in front of it, rang the doorbell, and waited for her to open. This could usually take a while since our house is big and she isn't the fastest anymore due to the aforementioned disabilities. After a longer time than usual, I called her landline to inform her I was there. She picked up and told me she was still in the bathroom and would be right there. It took her about 10 minutes to get to the door. Usually it takes like 1, during which I was waiting in the snowy streets at -5 degrees Celsius, 23 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. When she came to the door, she handed me the bag of presents for my parents, brothers. She also asked for me to wish everyone a happy Christmas and added that she was hoping I would enjoy my present. I thanked her, said my goodbyes, and drove back to my parents' place to enjoy Christmas Eve. Evening had come. We've had dinner with my mom, her mother, a lovely woman, and my 2 younger brothers. We already had unwrapped most of the presents before dinner, as we usually do. All in all, a very pleasant and typical Christmas Eve for my family. After dinner, we've started drinking homemade mulled wine when I remembered I still had Miss F's gifts and handed them out. Me and my brother each received an envelope with a card in it, but suspiciously, mine differed in size and color. I opened it and read its content. This is where the fun begins. While my brothers each received a complimenting message with 50 euros enclosed in the card, I received a scalding letter saying that she was still devastated by my behavior the previous summer and that she was expecting an apology for the disrespectful way I had treated her. Remember, her demands were literally impossible to fulfill. I admit I snapped and said something that could have been taken as disrespect, but continued to reach out wanting to help her while I was in town. I didn't really know how to react. I was speechless and threw the card on the table before going to grab another mug of mulled wine. When I got back from the kitchen, the older of my 2 younger brothers had read the card and loudly exclaimed something akin to, "What the heck?" At that point, everyone noticed something was wrong and I read the card out loud. I don't remember the exact wording, sorry. I then told them about what happened during summer. Nobody really believed how insane Miss F was, especially since she had been quietly planning her revenge for about half a year. The aforementioned brother, who had some extra money due to a paid internship, asked the youngest of us 3 whether he needed the 50 euros and offered to pay it himself, as he wanted to take all the 3 cards and throw them into her face. My youngest brother refused the monetary offer, but loved the idea, so that's what they did. I don't really know what happened afterwards. All I know is that Miss F was not expecting that reaction, as apparently no one in our family had ever stood up to her the way we did. This concludes the Christmas part of the story. We didn't really dwell on the topic for the rest of the holidays and still had an amazing celebration together. Fast forward to the summer of 2019. My parents had planned a big family reunion to celebrate a couple of important dates in their lives, coinciding major birthdays plus a significant wedding anniversary. That party was the first time I interacted with Miss F since the Christmas incident. I acted as if nothing had happened since I didn't want to cause a scene on my parents' special day with most of our extended family being there. This is a rare occasion since the family is spread around the Western world, mostly Western Europe and the US. We were together for about a week in my hometown, going to different dinner places every night and had a great and memorable time. I even got along with Miss F, albeit superficially and only in group settings. We never talked one-on-one. One evening, we were having dinner at a really nice place, and she came over to the table me, my brothers, and my cousins sat at. They all know what happened during the previous Christmas and were pretty angry with her. She asked whether I was willing to visit her one-on-one so we could have a talk about what had happened. I was happy too, as I don't like to hold on to grudges, but asked her that we talk at eye level like adults with mutual respect, as she had a tendency to twist the truth to suit her needs. I didn't say that part for obvious reasons. She agreed and asked me to call her to set up a time and date after the week-long celebration was over. A day later, I received an email from Miss F stating that she no longer had any interest in a conversation, as it was apparent from my demands that I hadn't grown and wasn't ready to apologize. She also wrote that she wasn't able to speak to me on an eye level, as she had much more life experience than me. Again, I didn't really know how to process this. I still don't. But enough time has passed that I have stopped caring about my relationship with her. Up to this day, nothing has really changed about this situation. I've seen her a couple of times at different family gatherings since then, and the interactions were fine. Probably because neither of us wants to dig this crap back up during otherwise great family times. But the issue itself was never really resolved. So yeah, that's the story about how I learned that the reported insanity of my grandmother, Miss F, was not exaggerated. It might be mild compared to other stories on here, and I'm very happy that I have the rest of my loving and supporting family to rely on, but it's still something that has changed me in a way, so I felt like sharing. Hope you enjoyed reading.
Karen demands I put my dog outside on Christmas.
I, 22 female, have a big cane corso, 130 pounds. Last year, I left him with some trusted friends to visit my family for 2 days. I hated it and asked my parents to let me visit with him next year. They agreed. They got a dog over this summer, and I thought nothing of it. Yesterday, however, I got a call from my stepmom saying that their little 15-pound mix has bitten 3 people and is extremely and irrationally dog aggressive. They never socialized her or took her to a trainer because she's tiny and harmless. I said I can take my crate and keep Dude, my dog, there or have them switch out with theirs, but she said that she needs Dude to be outside. I got upset and said no. Their yard is well fenced in and there is a small shed with heating out there, but I'm not a fan. It's 5 days of him in the cold, alone and outside. He's a house dog. He's never been and never will be an outside dog. There are no pet hotels or friends to turn to so close to Christmas. I tried making compromises, like keeping Dude in one room and just taking him out for walks, but she's refusing. She says it will upset their dog too much. I finally told her that if there's no way we can have Dude somewhere in the house, I can't go. Everyone is mad at me now, and my sister and cousin texted me saying I'm being overly dramatic. Dude is a protection breed, and a lot of them are actually kept in the yard as guardians. I understand that, but mine was never meant to be a backyard dog. I'd understand if it was summer and all, but I can't put him out in the dead of winter with temperatures below freezing. Am I the jerk for saying I won't go and for causing a scene? Not the jerk. She's tiny and harmless, and yet she bites people? And they want to have a house full of other people around her? That's just a disaster waiting to happen. Not the jerk. You offered several options. They clearly have never boarded a dog if they think you can find a facility now. Most places are booked for Christmas by the end of July. I'd skip it, and that's on them. OP. I called around, and only one place has availability, but they want $280 a night, which is insane. Plus, their reviews are horrible. Everything is solid booked, and they even have a list of people waiting in case of an opening. Am I the jerk for accidentally insulting my future daughter-in-law's infertility? I'm 64, and I have one son, Robert, with my late husband, James. Robert is engaged to Sarah, who is also 35. Last Sunday, Sarah and Robert came to my house for dinner. We were chatting, and I told them a story about James, who Sarah unfortunately never got to meet. While I was pregnant, James was very excited and insisted on putting together everything, cribs and changing tables, etc. Bless him, but my James was not much of a carpenter, and one day when I was putting Robert in his crib, the whole thing broke. I managed to catch Robert in time, so no harm done, thankfully. After the story, I made a joke along the lines of Sarah never having that problem if they have kids, because Robert actually is a carpenter. She burst into tears and asked me why I was being so cruel. I was taken aback and asked her what was wrong, as I certainly hadn't meant to upset her, and I was sorry if I had. She told me they discovered recently that Sarah is infertile and she would never be able to have kids, even with IVF. I apologized profusely and said if I had known, I would never have made a joke about it. James and I struggled with having Robert, and we were never able to give him siblings, so I felt awful that I had hurt Sarah like that. The mood was ruined after that, and Robert and Sarah decided to leave early. On Tuesday, I ran into Robert's best friend and his wife while I was out shopping. His wife is good friends with Sarah and seemed unusually cold towards me. I asked why, and she said she hadn't known I was so rude and that I should be ashamed of mocking Sarah's infertility. It turns out that the story had been spread that I viciously insulted Sarah and insinuated she shouldn't marry Robert. The story even got back to our family, and a lot of our relatives are quite upset with me. I apologized when I made the joke, but now I'm wondering if I really did overstep that badly and insult Sarah horribly. I don't want to be a bad mother-in-law, and I get along quite well with Sarah ordinarily. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I decided to answer some questions. 1. I haven't spoken to Robert about the story spreading the way it did. I thought it was best to give them space after the dinner to process Sarah's diagnosis, but a lot of commenters are saying I should ask him about it, and I think you may be right. 2. I haven't discussed future kids with her before, as my own mother-in-law was quite cruel to myself and James, especially me, since we only had Robert. James' siblings all have quite large families, and my mother-in-law was very clear about who she blamed for our lack of kids. I decided early on in Sarah and Robert's relationship that I wouldn't ask the typical questions of when would they be having kids, but I have only met Sarah's family once, so I don't know if her own relatives pressure her the way that my mother-in-law pressured me. 3. Sarah is a very lovely woman, and we have never had a big problem together before. Many commenters have said frankly rude things about her, which wasn't my intention when posting here. I know Robert has always wanted a big family, and he wouldn't have asked Sarah to marry him if they weren't on the same page about that. So Sarah is likely going through an enormous amount of grief at the moment. Do be kind to her, please. 4. I've also decided to reach out to Sarah and ask if the two of us can talk. I think the story spreading was really a case of telephone, but I would like to clear the air. Following that, I'm going to ask the both of them over for a chat and to discuss the situation, as I don't want this to fester. I haven't decided what I'm going to do about clearing everything up with the family, but it's not my main concern. Robert and Sarah are. I would like to thank everyone for their comments, as they were mostly all lovely and kind. The situation truly upset me, and a lot of you had very good advice, so thank you all. You made a joke about your late husband's carpentry skills, not your daughter-in-law's infertility, as you were completely unaware of their situation. That Sarah has chosen to make you a villain to everyone who will listen says more about her than it does you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Since you had no clue your future daughter-in-law was infertile, the comment was completely innocent. Your future daughter-in-law spreading lies about you to friends and family is definitely a jerk move. Have you tried speaking to your son about this situation? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter-in-law? Please let us know. Daughter agreed to pay for half of our pool, now she's backing out. Honestly, I don't even feel that this situation needs to be on Reddit, but my daughter, husband, and many of my family members are calling me a jerk, and I'm really not sure anymore. For context, 4 years ago when my daughter was 12, she desperately wanted a pool. She said that all her friends had pools, and she was the only one who didn't have one. Plus, she loved swimming. She insisted that she would use it daily in the summer. My husband and I could afford one, but as I'm sure some of you know, pools are very expensive, and neither of us really liked swimming, so we wanted my daughter to understand the cost she was asking for. We made an agreement that we would install a pool, but that once she was old enough to start working, she would pay us back for half of it. She quickly agreed. Well, flash forward to now. She's 16 and just got her first job, and now she wants to save up for a prom dress she really likes. I reminded her of our agreement about the pool, and she no longer wants to uphold her end of the agreement. I insisted, threatening to take away phone or her car privileges if she doesn't pay her father and I back. Now she won't speak to me. My husband is agreeing with her, saying that we can't have honestly expected a 12-year-old to keep her end of the agreement. For me, this isn't even about money. It's about teaching my young daughter the right morals to live life with. I don't want her to think she can just go around making deals for her benefit and then just not upholding them. Am I the jerk? You got in a verbal agreement with a 12-year-old for thousands of dollars and are now trying to enforce it? Seriously? 4 years later? The right morals to live with are that 12-year-olds cannot legally enter contracts. That's the moral. You're the jerk and just very, very misguided. You made a deal with a 12-year-old for thousands of dollars. Of course you're the jerk. As a parent of 4, there are plenty of ways to teach our kids morals that don't involve forcing a kid to pay for a pool in an agreement she made when she was still in 5th or 6th grade. Side question, if you expect her to pay for half of the pool, will she get a cut of the real estate if you ever sell the house? Having a pool increases the price of a house in real estate, so if she owns half the pool, she's entitled to part of that profit. In other words, you've already seen a return. Only company projects on company property? Sure. While in college, I had a co-op semester in a shop environment with a small company. My position was a designer with their product development team, and there were not very many tools available to make things. We were expected to produce concept prototypes out of cardstock and Elmer's glue. When our first presentation was met with disappointment since they just hired the new intern to improve the quality of deliverables, referring to me, I decided to do something about it. Over the next couple of weeks, I started bringing in my own tools from my personal shop. I had a whole menagerie of woodworking tools, automotive tools, my welder, and even a couple of 3D printers. I turned their studio area into a respectable prototyping space. The next presentation went very well when we were able to show a very fancy model paired with CAD designs and the associated 3D prints, detailed woodwork, and even bespoke metal details. Everyone was very happy, and I got to work with my own tools at my job. It was good times. Then came the reversal. The company had originally hired me as part of their expansion, and about 2 months after I had joined, roughly a month after I built their shop, the company was finally big enough to hire a single HR person. If you ever had to compete with the mental gymnastics of human resources, I'm sure you know where this is going. One evening, I was staying late to work on some personal projects. My immediate supervisor and everyone I worked with was aware that I did this. New HR lady was not. The day after, she called me in for a chat. It essentially went like this.
Why did you leave so late after clocking out last night?
I was just working on some personal projects.
Okay. Well, you can't use the company's space for personal projects. It is against policy.
Why? It's never been a problem before.
Running a shop costs money, and if that money isn't invested into the company's projects, then it isn't a good use of company funds.
Now, I know the running of a shop costs some money and power, labor, and maintenance, but I was clocked out, and the tools were basically all my own personal tools. So I said, I was clocked out and only using my own tools. The company isn't actually spending anything for me to do my own work.
Regardless, while on company property, you will only work on company projects. If you want to work on personal projects, you must do it in your own shop.
I considered explaining how the shop is 95% all my tools and equipment, but I only had about a month left in my co-op before heading back to classes next semester, and I was planning on taking my tools back by that time anyway. So, cue malicious compliance. I concluded the conversation with HR lady by asking for a transcription of her verdict in an email. I then waited until everyone had left from work the next day, then spent about an hour rounding up all of my tools and putting them in the back of my truck. I took them home and the next day went into work to find my department in chaos. I was immediately called into my supervisor's office and sat down. The supervisor was a pretty chill guy, so he calmly asked why I had cleaned out my stuff. I simply showed him the email from HR lady and explained that if I can only do company projects on company property, then I will also only use my personal property for personal projects. He laughed a bit to himself under his breath, asked me to forward the email to him, and then dismissed me. For the next month, I happily glued pieces of paper together to make simple form models while the entire department fell apart. We were unable to complete promised prototypes for our biggest client, lost that client as a result, and I left the company for good shortly thereafter. If you're going to run a company, it helps to provide your employees the equipment they need to adequately do their job. Am I the jerk for telling my husband he doesn't deserve to be a father? I'm 36, female. My husband, Dennis, is 39, and we've been together for 9 years, married for 4. When we met, we were both looking to settle down and have kids, so it felt like fate that we met. We started talking seriously about having kids around 1.5 years in and started trying at 2 years. After 3 years of trying and heartache, we decided to adopt. Following a long and hard journey, we were finally able to welcome home our beautiful daughter, Sophie. My husband was a wonderful father to Sophie. He loved holding her and being with her. He would rush to her side when he heard her cries. I couldn't have wished for a better partner and father for my kids. Just after everything settled down with Sophie, we got pregnant. Both Dennis and I were elated to hear that we would be having another baby and ecstatic when we found out we were having another girl, so close in age to her sister. But I started getting worried when I heard some of Dennis' comments as I started to show more and we got closer to birth. He once even said, "I can't believe we're finally having our own baby." I questioned what he meant by this as we have Sophie already, but he brushed it off, saying I knew what he meant, but didn't say it again to me. When I gave birth, Sophie was 11 months old and had been saying, "Aim, aim, aim," whenever she stroked my belly, so we decided to call our daughter Amy. When we brought Amy home is when Dennis' behavior really started to slip and lack towards Sophie. He stopped giving her attention, documenting, or even caring about her milestones. He started actively trying to avoid interactions with Sophie. Example, if I asked him to tend to Sophie if she was making a fuss, he would go to the cot and say that he can't as he is tending to Amy. Sophie is clearly being impacted by the sudden loss of her father, so once they were in bed tonight, I asked him what's going on with him. He told me that since Amy was born, his love for Sophie has died. He then retracted and reworded, saying dimmed instead. I was horrified. I told him I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He tried to calm me down by saying that perhaps we could split them. He'll take Amy and I take Sophie. It almost felt like he was making a really crappy joke. I called him a terrible person and told him he didn't deserve to be a father. I told him that I feel betrayed and repulsed by him for using one kid as a trial for the next. He left the house and hasn't come home since. It's snowy here, and it's almost 2 a.m. and I'm getting worried. Edit. Thank you everyone for your words of support and advice. I'm yet to speak properly with Dennis as I'm still seething. I have asked him to stay with his brother until the weekend, when I will have the opportunity to go and stay with the girls at my parents' house. Until then, my friend and sister are taking turns in helping me out at home. Fortunately, or unfortunately, it's likely that divorce is in the cards. I don't see this as something that either Dennis and I or the girls would be able to live with or recover from. Not the jerk. I don't throw around the "you should divorce this guy" line flippantly, but man, in this case, you should divorce this guy. Don't force Sophie to grow up thinking this is what a father's love looks like. Don't do that to her, OP. Won't let me feed the crows from the balcony? Fine. All the birds are coming by at 8 every morning. A year in the making, but oh so beautiful. I love crows. They're my favorite animal, and just so cool and emotive. They're awesome. I started feeding the local couple that were nesting near me, and come winter, the entire flock was coming by every day. I talked with my neighbors, found an agreeable time, and gave them a few bags of things that they like as a thanks for being chill. Everything seemed like it was fine, except my one neighbor, let's call him SD for short, keeps making little comments once in a while. About 4 months in, my landlord comes into my workplace. I rent an apartment above my shop, and yells at me that the crow feeder is attracting rodents. Apparently, the mice in our building are climbing trees and then jumping a 2-meter gap onto our building, climbing to the crow feeder and eating the food in it. This seems unlikely to me. The feeder is only up for 2 hours a day, and I've never seen mice parkour. It comes out that SD complained and fibbed quite a bit in his complaint. Detail after detail keeps slipping. There's a mouse problem in the building. I've never seen one or signs of any, but then again, I've lived on farms and still store my food off the ground, keep a tidy floor, etc. The restaurant next door is complaining about the place smelling like smoke, and SD pointed him at me. Landlord is absolutely convinced it's acrobatic mice making the leap to the balcony. I mentioned to the landlord that my shop smelled like this for the years that I was in it before renting the apartment upstairs, and that I always go outside to smoke. Also that I've lived on farms and in plenty of buildings and have never seen a mouse or rat decide to ignore ground floor entrances in favor of a leap of faith. We go back and forth for a bit. I agree to stop feeding the crows and tell him that without some kind of proof, he can kick stones over anything else. I add that he is never to come into my workplace without specific and declared need again, that I would be saving the recording of our interaction, and that he has, on no uncertain terms, crossed a line by coming into my workplace and raising his voice. After work, I check my suite and shop. No gaps, no holes, no droppings, no signs of mice at all. Knock on SD's door, see what's up. He invites me in to talk. First time I've been in his suite, and suddenly everything makes sense. He has a few birds of his own, has an ashtray he's been using, and the floor is littered with birdseed. Obviously, SD doesn't want the landlord to know he has pets, that he smokes inside, and that he's probably the cause of the rodents. I give zero hoots what he has to say. He had the opportunity to talk to me person to person to find recourse that wasn't putting the target on me. I'm done. So I look up the bylaws for feeding birds, and for peace and tranquility, I called my local council to make sure I wasn't ruffling feathers and got the go-ahead. Every morning I was going out at 8 a.m. and feeding my crows about 10 meters from my front door. Now just the nesting couple again, and there are no complaints. Come October, the entire flock is coming again, and I'm having to up the food amounts. Within weeks, the local seagulls are coming by too. I could rig another feeder to keep them away, but instead, I just up the feed amount to accommodate more birds. Every morning is met with a chorus of birdsong, crow, and seagull birdsong. I personally love it. SD confronts me first. I respond by being sympathetic. Oh, I know. It was way better before someone got the landlord involved. We could agree on a time, be considerate of each other and crap. Now, they gotta be fed and done before 9 a.m., and it has to be after 8 a.m. for peace and tranquility laws. Oh well. Landlord tried next. I texted back that I was feeding them on city property, ignored him until he came into my shop again, yelling again. I recorded the entirety of his rant and asked him if he knew where I was feeding the birds. He did, and then I asked him where the property he was responsible for ended. He left, and I forwarded a complaint to the property management company. Next come my other neighbors, and they get the same treatment. Yeah, it sucks. I miss feeding them at 11 too. But SD got the landlord involved, and now I have to do it on city property. And that means my only window is between 8 and 9. Sucks, man. Oh well. No one's tried to ask me to not feed them. I think they've realized that the crows mean more to me than most things. Also, the crows still chill on the balcony waiting for me in the morning, and I swear have started imitating my "Good morning, buds," if in cadence alone. Male Karen thinks it's wrong of us not to charge his things to someone else's card. Am I the jerk for the way I made my will? I'm in my late 50s and recently found out I have cancer. I have brain mets and things aren't looking too good. I'm taking care of my affair and estate planning when this happened. I'm single, I have no kids and no long-term relationships. My parents passed when I was young, and the only surviving family I have are my aunt and uncle, 2 sisters, and their kids. I'm pretty well off. I started in construction and have a very successful construction business. I'm leaving pretty much everything split between my family. I split a part of the estate to my aunt and uncle, who are both in their late 70s. They don't have any kids, and I would like to leave them something for them to live comfortably. The remaining money I've split equally between my sisters and their kids, 4 in total. My sisters are in their late 40s. Given our age difference and the early passing of our parents, our relationship was a mix of sister-brother and sister-father. I was doing a lot of things our parents would do when they were growing up. I'm very close with them. The problem my brother-in-laws had was the way I structured the money. I have the money invested in a long-standing trust fund. All 6 of them will receive $1 for every $1 they earn. This would essentially double their income. Any remaining money will be available to them after they reach 65 years of age. They also have the option to not use any money and let the investments continue till they retire. Alternatively, if they don't work, they will get no money till they are 65 years old. My nieces and nephews have either started working or are in their final year of college. My reasoning is that I want them to be self-sufficient. I don't want them to rely on this money or get lost in the sudden influx of wealth. I had a recent sit-down with the family to explain things. I didn't want to leave any bitter feelings or cause fights over money after my passing. Everyone seemed pretty accepting until I got a bunch of angry calls and messages from my brother-in-laws. Both of them were calling me a control freak, trying to tell their kids and wives how to live their lives. I'm a bit shocked. I didn't really have such an intention. Am I being a controlling jerk? Edit. To clarify, I'm leaving absolutely nothing for both brother-in-laws. Only for 8 people, 2 sisters, 4 nephews and nieces, 1 aunt, 1 uncle. Your brother-in-laws are looking to cash in on your inheritance to their wives. Looks like you've nipped their greed in the bud. Leave your will as is, otherwise they'll squander your money, leaving your siblings and nibblings with nothing to fall back on. So yeah, not the jerk. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.